Chapter 940. The left minister only sighed ruefully, and did not go into too much detail about the situation of the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. If he didn't say, Ling Han naturally couldn't ask in detail. He wanted to find Shui Yenyu later and ask her for a more detailed explanation. They rode the carriage of the left minister's residence, and their speed was astonishingly fast. Not long after, they arrived in front of the imperial palace. Here, even the left minister couldn't drive a carriage in. After alighting from the carriage, the guards verified the identities of the three people before letting them in. During this period, don't speak out of turn, the left minister warned very sternly. Yes. Ling Han and Xiang Qingyun both obeyed. This was the center of power of the entire Chaotic Star's majestic empire, and also one of the three centers of power on the joint peace planet. The main color of the imperial palace was pink, which was a bit feminine, but it couldn't be helped. The ruler here was an empress, and she was also known as the most beautiful woman in the world. Even the rulers of the other two majestic empires were willing to give up their land and throne for her. If she wasn't extremely feminine, who else could she be? Ling Han was somewhat expectant. He was finally going to see this legendary empress. How alluring and enchanting was she that even the two great emperors were willing to serve under her skirt. Xiang Qingyun's breathing quickened a bit disappointingly. It wasn't that he hadn't seen the empress before, but the empress's beauty was too alluring, making his heart beat faster and his breathing tense just thinking about it. It could be said that for those who had seen the empress, there was no beauty in their eyes. They only had room for such an exquisite beauty that could bring calamity and chaos to the world. Compared to her, the so-called beauties completely paled in comparison, and were trash among trash. After entering deep into the imperial palace, the guards here were changed to women. They were probably afraid that men were unreliable. If they were placed here as guards, the possibility of embezzlement would be higher, and it would instead be unsafe. The location of the tournament was arranged at the Imperial Martial Arts Field. Not only was the field of the tournament very large, the spectator seats were also very large. There were 4 platforms protruding from above like cliffs, and the one facing south was the largest, like an emperor. This was naturally the seat exclusive to the empress, and usually, only the 9 kings could sit there. The other 3 platforms were much smaller. The one in the east was given to the Eternity Sky Empire, the one in the west was given to the Sky Jade Empire, and the one in the north was shared by the left and right ministers, the 7 generals, and other high officials. Every time there was a power struggle between the 3 majestic empires, because it involved the prestige of a majestic empire, the standards were considerably high. The other 2 majestic empires would each send an imperial prince to lead the team. The one from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire would be the younger brother of the current emperor, while the one from the Jade Drop Majestic Empire would be the 4th uncle of the emperor. Both of them were powerful figures who wielded immense power in the empire, and their abilities had both advanced into the heavenly body tier. Ling Han naturally did not have the right to sit on any one of the 4 high platforms. Xiang Qingyun, on the other hand, was able to stand on the north platform thanks to the minister of the left. Since he was below, he naturally couldn't see the situation on the high platform. This made Ling Han feel slightly regretful. Even if Empress Yuan Xing came, he wouldn't be able to see it. It wasn't that he had any thoughts about this empress. It was purely that he had heard too much about her absolute beauty, so he was curious and wanted to see it with his own eyes. The contestants of the 3 majestic empress were all standing on the tournament field, and a tournament stage had been built in the middle. This was a tournament stage battle, so there naturally had to be the rules of the tournament stage. Whoever was knocked off the tournament stage would be considered to have lost. Otherwise, if one fled and the other chased, how many years would they have to fight for? What kind of powerful figures were all present? How would they have so much time to play around with shattering void tier cultivators? Brother Ling, I've just received the news. This is a bit troublesome. Yi Qingyun suddenly ran over, then waved at the other 8 people, and said, "Everyone, come and listen." "What trouble?" Ma Xing said carelessly. "With senior brother Ling here, we'll definitely get first place. That's right. The others nodded one after another. Ling Han's performance had already completely won over everyone. Yet Yu Qingyun shook his head, and said, I just received the news just now, and have already investigated the contestants of the other two majestic empires. They, too, have two freaks. Could they be more freakish than senior brother Ling? Ma Xing said, fanning his hands, appearing unconcerned. Yet Yu Qingyun shook his head, and said, the one from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire is said to be the descendant of the Peacock King, while the one from the Jade Drop Majestic Empire is known as the Great Turtle King, and is speculated to be the descendant of the divine beast Black Tortoise. This time, everyone was somewhat moved. This involved a divine beast, so battle prowess couldn't be measured with common sense. Meanwhile, Ling Han was finally a little interested, and said, then I'd like to see for myself. He was too strong in the shattering void tier, and had always had an overwhelming advantage. Now, if someone could challenge him, it would instead give him a pleasant surprise. Being invincible was too lonely. Seeing Ling Han so confident, everyone's hearts calmed slightly. Although Ling Han didn't have any bloodline advantage, he was similarly a freak. Her Majesty has arrived. A female official shouted loudly, her voice echoing endlessly above the martial arts field. Shua, everyone stood up, and respectfully welcomed the Empress's arrival. Ling Han raised his head to look at the southern platform, but couldn't see anything, and couldn't help but feel disappointed. There was an uproar on the platform. Empress Wan Xing's strength was not only awe-inspiring, but also so beautiful that even the two monarchs were completely subdued. Who wouldn't want to take a few more glances? Unfortunately, because of the position, only the people on the other three platforms could see the Empress's true appearance. Let's begin. A slightly stuttering voice said, it was the ninth king. As expected, the ninth king and the Empress were as close as sisters. This voice came down from the southern platform. The first place in the last tournament was the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, so this time, the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire will defend the arena. The second place last time was the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire, so the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire will be the first to attack, and the Jade Drop Majestic Empire will be the second. The ninth king adjusted her emotions, and finally didn't stutter in her next sentence. The three majestic empires had obviously already arranged the order of appearance. Thus, when the ninth king's voice fell, a person from the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire had already jumped onto the arena, and from the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire's side, a person called Mo Xiang was the first to attack. Ling Han didn't pay much attention. He was the last to stand guard, and there was still a lot of time before it was his turn. No matter how many people were left on either side, he didn't care. He searched around the ordinary platforms, and soon found Shui Yanyu. She had come with the others from the academy, and when she discovered Ling Han's gaze, the female companions beside her instantly laughed, teasing Shui Yanyu, causing this great beauty to blush. Ling Han found Luo Lai again. He sat behind a few middle-aged men and old men, and when he discovered Ling Han's gaze, his expression was a little strange, both angry and a little smug. However, those middle-aged and old men all cast a cold gaze at Ling Han, not concealing the killing intent in their eyes at all. They were all members of the Luo clan. Ling Han said in his mind. That was why they hated him so much. Then just wait for me to sweep through the world, and make them even more jealous and hateful. Chapter 941. The battle progressed very quickly. Because they were confined to a small arena, they couldn't fully use their movement techniques, and had to fight at close quarters within a few moves. In just over an hour's time, there were only 3 people left on the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire's side, and there wasn't much difference between the other 2 sides. Reality proved that aside from the occasional freak like Ling Han, the reserves of top-notch geniuses of the 3 great nations were about the same. When Ma Xing was also defeated, Yu Qingyun stepped out. He challenged 4 opponents from the 2 great nations consecutively, forcing the general of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire to come out first. It was a woman. She had a slender figure, and her features were as beautiful as a painting. Her long hair reached her hips, and her dressing was also very cool. The clothing on her upper body was very short, actually revealing a small part of her waist, which was as white as ivory and as smooth as fine jade. The lower half was a pair of leather pants, but they were all cut off below the knees, revealing 2 white calves, which appeared even fairer in comparison to the black leather pants. Her figure was really too good, and her full hips were shaped like ripe peaches, so tempting that one would want to take a bite. The leather pants reflected light, making her look even more hair-raising. Eternity Sky Majestic Empire, Yu Rong Er. She clasped her fists. Yu Qingyun revealed a hint of amazement, clasped his fists at her, and said, Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire, Yu Qingyun. Please, please. After saying the word, please, Yu Rong Er immediately launched an attack. Her figure leaped out, bringing along a stream of light with her extraordinarily fast speed. In an instant, she appeared in front of Yu Qingyun, and pressed out a palm. Yu Qingyun was shocked. This speed was beyond his expectations, but this was the general who guarded the borders of the other side, and being strong was within his expectations. He had 21 stars of Shattering Void tier battle prowess, after all, and was shockingly strong. He immediately clenched his fist and punched out. Peng! The fist and palm collided solidly, but Yu Qingyun was directly sent flying. Pa! He fell off the stage. He actually couldn't withstand a single blow. Ling Han's eyes lit up. The battle prowess displayed by this woman was only above 21 stars, not even 22 stars, but she didn't use any secret techniques at all. This meant that her battle prowess definitely exceeded 22 stars, and it was even possible that it had reached 23 stars. With Yu Qingyun's defeat, it was time for the Sky Jade Empire to send out their general. Sky Jade Empire, Zhonghai. This was a man with a very strange figure. He was not short, but he had a hunched back. Moreover, his back was like a tortoise's. Not only was it flat, but it also had a circular arc descendant of the black tortoise. It was possible that it wasn't just a rumor. The two of them began to fight fiercely. Yu Rong Er was superior in terms of attack, but Zhonghai had also inherited the turtle's defensive ability. No matter how powerful the attack was, he only needed to turn his back, and the turtle's back could easily neutralize it. If he wanted to injure him, he would have to close the distance and engage in close combat so that he wouldn't have the time to turn around. But close combat was too dangerous, and it was not suitable for elemental energy cultivators. That was the attack pattern of body cultivators. Yu Rong Er's strength was obviously not limited to this. She shouted delicately, 100 feathers of the peacock, destroy the universe. A beautiful screen of feathers suddenly appeared behind her, just like a peacock spreading its tail. Then, a total of 72 feathers shot out at the same time, blasting towards Zhonghai. There was no absolute defense in this world, only attacks that were not powerful enough. Zhonghai sneered, and still turned around. However, this time, his back suddenly bulged, and his clothes split open, revealing an oval black tortoise shell. It was covered with divine patterns, and at this moment, it was already intertwining and shining. He was obviously only in the Shattering Void tier, yet he could activate the divine patterns. Although there were only a few, their power was naturally extremely powerful. This was his bloodline, which allowed him to possess a bit of the power of the immortal level in advance. Shio, 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 the 100 feathers shot out at the same time, bursting with dazzling light on the tortoise shell. The 100 feathers swept past, but Zhonghai was not injured at all. Ha 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 ha. Zhonghai counterattacked Yu Rong Er. He did not attack, and merely used the tortoise's back as a shield, ramming towards Yu Rong Er. His goal was very obvious, he wanted to knock Yu Rong Er off the stage, so that he could win without a fight. This was very despicable, but the effect was very good. The tortoise shell's defense was too terrifying, and it was intertwined with divine patterns. A Shattering Void tier elite would definitely not feel good if they were hit by it. After Yu Rong-er was forced into a corner, it was equivalent to announcing her defeat. She was knocked off the stage. Yu Rong-er was fuming with anger. In terms of real battle prowess, she definitely did not lose to Zhong Hai, but fighting on the stage was too disadvantageous for her. Her powerful attack was almost useless. In this way, the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire would be the third place this time, and could only compete with the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire and Jade Drop Majestic Empire for the first place. Zhong Hai's method of victory attracted boos. Beauties had an extra affinity with the audience, and now, everyone naturally supported Yu Rong-er, wanting nothing more than to boo Zhong Hai off the stage. However, Zhong Hai's skin was as thick as his tortoise shell, and he stood on the stage without the slightest bit of shame. Instead, he crooked his finger in Ling Han's direction, full of provocation. "Senior brother Ling, destroy him." The people of the Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire were all angry. "You're too arrogant." Ling Han smiled faintly, and slowly walked to the front of the stage. He walked up the stairs, appearing extremely calm. "Hurry up, defeat you, and we'll be the first," Zhong Hai said arrogantly. Ling Han did not speed up, nor did he slow down. His heart was firm, and how could he be fooled by others? He walked onto the stage, and said, "Chaotic Stars Majestic Empire, Ling Han. Jade Drop Majestic Empire, Zhong Hai, please. Please." When Ling Han also said, "Please," Zhong Hai immediately revealed a sinister smile, and swung a fist at Ling Han. Ling Han casually slashed out, and a flash of sword chi easily dispelled this punch. "Not bad," Zhong Hai sneered. His punch just now was just to test the waters. His expression froze, and he clenched his fists tightly. His originally black and white eyes actually turned deathly white. Raging Sea Fist, he roared, and suddenly punched out with both fists. Instantly, the sound of waves rang out, and a phantom image of a tsunami appeared, crashing towards Ling Han. Battle prowess of 22 stars of Shattering Void Tier, almost approaching 23 stars. Ling Han evaluated in his mind. However, what was his current battle prowess? Go! He rushed out, and struck out with a palm. Golden light surged, and directly broke through the tsunami, continuing to strike towards Zhong Hai. Zhong Hai immediately revealed an expression of shock. What kind of attack did Ling Han have? It actually broke through his Raging Sea Fist so easily. He hurriedly turned around, planning to use the same trick again, and use his natural defense to win. Hong! Ling Han's palm pressed on the tortoise shell, and both of their figures froze. The divine patterns on the tortoise shell flashed. It was blocked again. The spectators were all disappointed. They naturally hoped that Ling Han could win, and the people of the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire were no exception. Ka, a crisp sound was heard, and a crack actually appeared on the tortoise shell. Then, like a spider web, it spread all over the tortoise's back in an instant. Then, it shattered piece by piece, like porcelain. Chapter 942. Shattered tortoise, in the eyes of ordinary creatures, was synonymous with powerful defense. Even fierce tigers and lions couldn't do anything to a tortoise's shell. And after entering the level of demonic beasts, the defense of tortoises increased again. The pinnacle of demonic beasts was divine beasts, so their defense was naturally even more shocking. Zhong Hai was born with a shred of the bloodline of the ancient divine beast, the black tortoise, which manifested in his defense. The area on his back was known as the God's Domain, because only immortals could break it. On the stage, all the spectators were dumbfounded. Even many elites of the Mountain River Tier and Sun Moon Tier couldn't believe it. Ling Han was clearly only in the Shattering Void Tier, but how could his battle prowess be so powerful? On the high stage, the important figures of the Jade Drop and Eternity Sky Majestic Empire even tried to sense if Ling Han had borrowed power of the nation, but to their disappointment, there were no signs of external power on Ling Han, and the totem of the empire, the 9 Peaks, didn't have Ling Han's name. Without a name on the totem, one couldn't draw power of the nation, this was a principle that everyone knew. His own battle prowess could be so powerful. This surprised many important figures. Because the shattering void tier hadn't crossed into the immortal level, the influence wasn't too great. Even a genius only needed to reach 20 stars of battle prowess, and there was no need to fight to the death at this step. After all, the path of martial art was too long. Moreover, even if you cultivated the shattering void tier to perfection, how many stars of surpassing ability could you increase? I can still cultivate to perfection in the mountain river tier and sun moon tier, so wouldn't the increase in battle prowess be even stronger? Precisely because it was too difficult to surpass one's cultivation level in the immortal level, pursuing cultivation level was the way of the king. Peng, Zhonghai fell off the stage, releasing a shrill scream. This tortoise shell was a part of his body, and now that it was forcefully shattered, it naturally caused him great pain. However, his previous victory was too despicable, so now that he was in such a miserable state, everyone instead felt a kind of satisfaction, feeling that their hatred had been vented. The rankings have been decided. In this competition among the three empires, the Chaotic Majestic Empire is first, the Jade Drop Majestic Empire is second, and the Eternity Sky Majestic Empire is third. The ninth king's voice rang out on the high platform, announcing the final results. Ling Han, Yi Qingyun, and the rest of the 10 contestants were all rewarded with 100 true origin stones each. This was not a small amount of wealth, and it could be said to be a heavy reward for just one battle. Ling Han was just about to leave with the left minister when a palace maid caught up to them. She first curtsied, then said, "By His Imperial Majesty's orders, Ling Han is summoned for an audience." Minister Zhua was slightly taken aback and quickly replied respectfully, "Yes." Meanwhile, Xiang Qingyun was about to go mad with jealousy. This lowly commoner of a small world had actually been summoned by the Empress. What kind of luck was that? Even he had only managed to catch a glimpse of the Empress from afar because he was following the left minister. This was his pride, but now this shattering void tier brat was actually able to come into close contact with the Empress, and instantly trampled his pride onto the ground. He was filled with hatred. Why had he brought Ling Han back in the first place? It would have been better to just directly kill him, and casually install a puppet emperor. But now, he could only feel regret, and did not dare to do anything. The person that the Empress wanted to see, did you dare to stop her? Ling Han followed the palace maid, and walked into the depths of the imperial palace. It was incredibly quiet here. Aside from the patrolling guards, there was no one else. Of course, the guards were all female, and they were all in teams of 10, led by an elite in the consummate level of the mountain river tier. The team members were also in the mountain river tier. However, after that, the palace maid led Ling Han to the entrance of a side palace hall. It was completely forged from pink crystal, and looked like a beautiful gemstone. "Reporting to your majesty, I have brought Ling Han," the palace maid said as she knelt at the entrance. "Announce." A dignified voice was heard from inside, yet there was an incredible charm hidden within. It was as sweet as honey, making one feel incredibly comfortable just by hearing it. The palace maid nodded at Ling Han, and walked into the palace hall. Ling Han followed in as well. He acutely discovered that there was an imperial guard hidden behind every thick stone pillar that was 3 meters wide. Their auras were unfathomable, or at least, they were not ones that he could detect clearly. There were a total of 18 such pillars, and they extended all the way to the bottom of the palace hall. There was an imperial throne there, and a woman dressed in a dragon robe was seated high on it. However, there was a divine light flickering on her body, and her specific appearance could not be seen clearly. However, even if it was incredibly hazy, there was a kind of charm that reached straight to the bone, and could melt one's heart. The reputation of the greatest beauty in the world was well deserved. She merely sat there, and there was an irresistible charm. Ling Han sighed, but had no choice but to kneel on one knee, and said, "Ling Han pays his respects to your majesty." This was an elite at the peak stage of the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, and she herself was possibly a 5-star genius. Added with the power of the nation, if not the eternal river tier, at least in the heavenly body tier, she should be invincible. Towards this kind of elite, it was only right to be respectful. Empress Wan Xing's eyes swept over him, and Ling Han suddenly felt as if he had been seen through from inside out. It was as if he could not hide any secrets in front of her. Coming from a small world by opening the sky, it has not been easy for you, she said, with a sliver of praise. Instantly, Ling Han felt as if his blood had rushed to his head, but he immediately felt a chill in his heart. Why was it that she had only praised him, and he felt an urge to die for her? The charm of this empress was too frightening. She had obviously not used any cultivation technique, and only a single sentence, and added with the fact that her own appearance, bearing, and even appearance were all hazy, she had already made him so intoxicated. No wonder even the 2 emperors of the heavenly body tier were enchanted by her. Indeed, this kind of charm was really too hard to resist. Thank you for your praise, Your Majesty, Ling Han said solemnly. His eyes were lowered, and he did not dare to take another look. This empress was a source of calamity, and her charm was much greater than Shui Yenyu's and Zhu Xian'er's. At least as far as Ling Han knew, the only one that could rival or even surpass her in terms of bearing was that former imperial empress of the Rock Palace. However, the temperament of these 2 women was completely different. Though the one from the Rock Palace had a gentle tone, she was elegant and distant, causing others to only feel reverence, and not dare to have any wild thoughts. But though the tone of this empress in front of him was clear and cold, it was like a sweet poison, making one unable to resist even if they wanted to. They were willing to be like moths flying into a flame, and would not regret it even if they died. This should also be related to the cultivation technique that this empress cultivated. Otherwise, it would definitely be impossible for her to be so enchanting and seductive. Ling Han did not think that with his current cultivation level, he would be able to resist the charm of this empress for long. Thus, it was better not to act rashly, lest his mind and spirit sink into oblivion, unable to free himself. You have turned the tide for our empire, and won 1,000 slots to enter into the heavenly sea mystery realm. Thus, I will make an exception, and grant you a slot to enter, Empress Wanxing said. Thank you, Your Majesty. This reward was within Ling Han's expectations. Furthermore, would such a powerful figure like the Empress specially summon him just to personally announce such news? Thinking about it, the battle prowess that he had displayed was too astonishing, and that was why Empress Wanxing wanted to observe him at a close distance. Chapter 943. Ling Han was confident, but he definitely wasn't arrogant. After escaping from the encirclement, Ling Han stopped, and waited for the old ginseng and rabbit to arrive. When they arrived, Ling Han asked, Rabbit, do you want to go to a good place? What good place? Rabbit asked. He had never entered into the Black Tower before. Ling Han laughed, and first tossed the old ginseng into the Black Tower. Then, he grabbed Rabbit and entered with him. What is this place? Rabbit was stunned to the extreme. A spatial god tool was something that he didn't even dare to think about. Here, go there and cultivate. Ling Han tossed him under the reincarnation tree. He couldn't be bothered to explain, so he had the old ginseng accompany him. After a short while, he heard Rabbit making a big fuss. He was really stunned. If he could comprehend under this divine tree, wouldn't he have a chance to advance to the Genesis tier? Ling Han chuckled, and called Small Tower over. He asked, is there any way to quickly dispel the alchemical poison in my body? Small Tower floated slightly, and answered, yes. Ling Han was instantly overjoyed, and said, hurry up and tell me, what do you want to do? If he could quickly dispel the alchemical poison in his body, he would be able to reach the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier in an extremely short period of time. Then, he would advance to the pinnacle level, and then rush to the peak stage of the pinnacle level. The fourth level of the Black Tower has already been opened, and it can provide divine flames once every 3 months to temper your body. Under the divine flames, everything inside your body will be burned to ashes, Small Tower said calmly. Ling Han's lips twitched involuntarily. Why did this sound so terrifying? However, the Black Tower could provide divine flames and temper his physique. This was something that Small Tower had already mentioned long ago. However, Small Tower did not mention this matter again after that, and he very quickly forgot about it. He probed, and asked, then will I be in danger? Yes. Small Tower nodded. If you can't endure it, you will turn into ashes. No, you won't even be able to leave behind ashes. Instead, you will completely turn into nothingness, and I will also no longer have to endure an idiotic master like you. Fuck, you tsunder a tower, will you die if you don't insult me? Ling Han thought for a moment, and asked, why didn't you tell me this before? Do you want to die so badly? Small Tower countered with a question first, and then said, at first, I wanted to wait until you reached the heavenly body tier before letting you temper your divine body, and elevate your physique to another level. In truth, Small Tower was also a soft-hearted person with a sharp tongue. It had already arranged the path for Ling Han, and it should be said that it was the most beneficial direction for Ling Han's development. However, it always liked to mock Ling Han a little. Ling Han was pleasantly surprised, and asked, you mean, my physique can still be elevated by another level, and reach the level of surpassing my cultivation level by 2 minor levels? Surpassing 2 minor levels is a little exaggerated, but it will definitely be much stronger than it is now. Furthermore, the greatest effect of being tempered by divine flames is that you will have the possibility of rising from the ashes, Small Tower said. Ling Han instantly showed an expression of determination, and said, there is no need to consider, I want to be tempered by divine flames. In the small world, his physique had surpassed his cultivation level by a whole level, so he was practically a monster of the same cultivation level. It was basically impossible for anyone to injure him, and even those who surpassed him by a whole major cultivation level would find it very difficult to do so. But in the immortal realm, his physique could only surpass 1 minor level, and that was not safe. In truth, as long as one's battle prowess surpassed 4 stars, then there was a possibility of injuring him, because 4 stars represented a minor level. Although 5-star geniuses were said to only exist in legends, in truth, such geniuses still existed. Furthermore, Ling Han himself was such a genius, so the chances of him encountering such geniuses were also considerably high. Thus, his current physique was not really invincible among those of the same cultivation level, but it was still very, very awesome. Also, what is rising from the ashes? Ling Han asked. Cultivating the indestructible flame of life is like an immortal phoenix, rising from the ashes of extreme death, Small Tower said. A part of the indestructible heaven scroll is borrowed from the secret technique of the immortal phoenix, turning death into life, and it is a supreme secret technique. Immortal phoenix? Ling Han asked in surprise. Not a true phoenix. Hehe, compared to the immortal phoenix, what are true phoenixes? Small Tower said in a very disdainful tone. Then the indestructible heaven scroll also refers to the secret technique of some divine beast, no, immortal beast? Ling Han asked curiously. The primal chaos origin beast, the 10,000 transformations tortoise, and the diamond ant are all top-notch existences in the celestial realm. They were fused into one by the heavenly venerable, and that is how they finally cultivated the indestructible heaven scroll, Small Tower said very proudly. Of course, the most important thing is that the heavenly venerable has comprehended the ultimate regulations. That is the true essence of the indestructible heaven scroll. Ling Han gave an oh. He had not entered into the celestial realm yet, and did not know how awesome the primal chaos origin beast and 10,000 transformations tortoise that Small Tower spoke of were. In any case, he only knew that the indestructible heaven scroll was very, very powerful, and that was enough. Come. Ling Han nodded. He desired strength, whether it was to overthrow the 5 sects, or to meet that Qi Yen Ji in the two-realm prodigy gathering 3 years later. You have to think carefully. If you do not endure it, then you will completely perish, Small Tower said solemnly. With your talent, it is not impossible for you to endure the trial of the divine flame in the sun-moon tier, but the danger is still extremely great. And if you proceed again in the heavenly body tier, your chances of success will be much greater. Ling Han laughed, and said, since you have already said that I can endure it, then I believe that I can definitely do it. Small Tower nodded, and said, I will give you 3 days' time to circulate the indestructible heaven scroll again. You have to thoroughly grasp every single detail. This is the key for you to endure the tempering of the divine flame. Otherwise, only death awaits you. What comes next is your willpower. Without the resolve to overcome everything and walk to the end, you will only be burned to ashes by the divine flame. All right. Ling Han meditated under the reincarnation tree, and completely circulated the indestructible heaven scroll once. He studied every single detail, and after confirming that he had truly completed the circulation, he stood up. Moreover, 5 days had already passed, and not the 3 days that Small Tower had said. This was 5 years of comprehension. Let's begin, Ling Han said darkly. Small Tower sent Ling Han to a faraway place. There was actually a gigantic cauldron here, and it was of an ancient style. Ling Han had never seen it before. Why has a cauldron suddenly appeared? Ling Han was surprised. Small Tower, just how many things have you been hiding from me? Small Tower did not speak. Hey, I'm talking to you. Ling Han said loudly. Oh, is that so? Only now did Small Tower speak up. I didn't hear you just now. What were you talking about? Ling Han repeated his question, but Small Tower was still stupefied. Fuck, so this Tsundere Tower did not want to answer him at all, and that was why it had pretended to be deaf and mute. Thinking about it, he was really naive. He actually really believed that there would be a time when a tool spirit's ears would fail to work. Go in. Small Tower shook lightly, and the cauldron opened. Hung, immediately, blazing flames soared into the skies. In comparison, Ao Ziyun's black flames were practically child's play. Ling Han couldn't help but grit his teeth. If he threw himself into this kind of divine flames, he would definitely turn into ashes in an instant. Was this tempering, or was this courting death? Remember, the only thing that can protect you is the indestructible heaven scroll. You only need to continuously channel the heaven scroll, and forget everything else, Small Tower said solemnly. Whether you can survive in the midst of death, and rise from the ashes, this is the key. Do not ever think of going against this kind of flames. This is something that is completely impossible. Because these are not divine flames, but immortal flames. Fuck. Reading on a cell phone is even more refreshing. Chapter 944. Ling Han's eyes swept over, and saw that many people were staring at him with a sneer, revealing undisguised killing intent. There were senior brothers and sisters from the West Institution, disciples of the Luo clan, and Zhao Luan's subordinates, all of whom were in the low extreme of the mountain river tier. They stared at Ling Han as if he were a sheep, filled with cruelty and ruthlessness. Ling Han didn't know so many people at first, but Lin Yu stood beside him, and introduced them to him one by one, giving him an idea of who they were. The Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm didn't only have opportunities, but also endless dangers. Thus, it was very normal for some people to die inside every time, and it was impossible to find out who did it. In the Mystery Realm, it had always been the best place to settle personal grudges. If you were afraid of death, then you could only choose not to enter. Opportunities and dangers always coexisted. Ling Han looked at these people, and sneered internally. Even without the Black Tower, with the strength of his current physique, he was completely no weaker than level 1 godly metal, and could completely withstand the attack of someone at the peak of the low extreme of the mountain river tier. And he still had the 7-kill subduing soul technique, so it was still uncertain who would kill who. Additionally, he had already made a breakthrough in 6 techniques return to 1, and now he only lacked time. As long as he reached 20 stars of strength, he could break through, and when he advanced into the mountain river tier, it would basically be his turn to sweep away others. He indeed didn't have an immortal level cultivation technique, but don't forget that there were mountain river stones in the mystery realm that could directly condense mountains and rivers, though it was extremely limited to the peak of the low extreme. However, the limit of those who entered here was only the peak of the low extreme, so in a battle of equals, who would Ling Han be afraid of? These people swept their cold gazes over, and Ling Han returned a similarly cold gaze, not the slightest bit afraid. Shui Yanyu felt a headache coming on. How could she have imagined that Ling Han was so good at stirring up trouble? Not only did he have a great enemy like Xiao Luan, he actually made a great enemy of the Western institution and the Luo clan. She didn't know whether to be angry at him for not knowing when to back off, or admire Ling Han's courage. Li Weiwei had also pulled Ji Yun over, and was chattering away beside Ling Han's ear, completely ignoring the fact that there was still a top elite of the low extreme division of the mountain river tier of the northern institution standing beside her. This caused Tang Feng's expression to be rather ugly. Tang Feng was currently 277 years old, and his cultivation level was at the peak stage of the low extreme of the mountain river tier. In the North Institution's low extreme division, he was ranked as the top elite. Merely this status alone had caused countless beautiful junior sisters to throw themselves at him, offering themselves to sleep with him. It was just that he was a man of self-discipline and did not indulge in the lust of men and women. But he would still occasionally be dissolute. He was not married, so how could he resist temptation that came knocking on his door? But this time, he was entrusted by the left Prime Minister, and he suddenly had a great ambition. He wanted to be the son-in-law of the left minister. The journey to the mystery realm would take at least half a month, and at most half a year. Furthermore, there were many dangers inside, and he and Li Weiwei were a single man and a single woman. If they were to spend time together, it would not be long before they developed feelings for each other. Furthermore, women were the most vulnerable in the face of danger. When she saw his awe-inspiring appearance, she would definitely be unable to stop her heart from being moved, unable to control herself. His thoughts were very beautiful, but who would have thought that Li Weiwei would not take him seriously at all? She looked like she was ordering him around like a servant, and practically did not even look him in the eye. This caused him to feel very aggrieved. If it was said that the daughter of the left minister was naturally proud, then so be it, but Li Weiwei was actually laughing and joking around with a lowly commoner from a small world, completely unguarded, practically treating him as a friend. How could Tang Feng accept this? As the top elite of the high and mighty low extreme division, could it be that he could not even compare to a lowly commoner from a small world? Tang Feng's expression was as dark as still water. He had made up his mind that after entering into the mystery realm, he definitely had to separate from Ling Han. Though he had never entered into the Heavenly Sea mystery realm before, for the sake of his beloved daughter, the left minister had given him a jade scroll. There was incredibly detailed information regarding the Heavenly Sea mystery realm inside, so he was very confident. As the saying went, 3 women made a show. As Li Weiwei chattered incessantly, she spurred Ji Yun, and Shui Yanyu to occasionally say a few words as well, making it completely impossible for Ling Han to get a word in edgewise. Thus, he retreated to one side and began chatting with Lin Yu. "Senior brother Ling, why don't you join me later?" Lin Yu extended an invitation. "This time, our Lin clan has obtained a total of 3 spots. Aside from me, the other 2 brothers are both elites in the low extreme of the mountain river tier." He had long heard of Lin Yu's righteousness, and was willing to risk his life for his friends. Just from hearing his words, he knew that it was true. He thought that Ling Han might be hunted down, and thus invited him with great hospitality. Ling Han couldn't help but smile, and said, "Many thanks for junior brother Lin's hospitality, but I am still used to being alone." Lin Yu glanced at Shui Yanyu, and thought he understood. He said, I forgot that senior brother Ling still has a beautiful and enchanting senior sister accompanying him. However, senior sister Shui has just broken through to the mountain river tier, and if she encountered an opponent in the late stage of the low extreme or even the peak stage, she might still be no match for them. Shui Yanyu was very talented in martial art, and was a 2-star genius, but how could those who could enter into the mystery realm be ordinary? Those who had advanced into the mountain river tier were at least 1-star geniuses. Thus, Shui Yanyu could only match an opponent in the middle stage of the low extreme at most, and definitely couldn't be any stronger. Ling Han patted Lin Yu's shoulder, and said, I understand. However, I will be fine. At that time, who will be the hunter, and who will be the prey is still uncertain. Feeling the powerful confidence that Ling Han exuded, Lin Yu involuntarily chose to believe him. Ling Han. A pleasantly surprised voice was heard, and the 9th king was seen walking over quickly, holding up the hem of her dress. Her status was too high, and all the people of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire knelt before her. As she ran over, the people around her also knelt on the ground, and only stood up after she ran past, like a wave. Ling Han was surprised. Why did this 9th king suddenly call for him? He hadn't finished his thought when the 9th king had already run up to him. Lin Yu hurriedly half-knelt, and respectfully paid his respects. No need, no need. The 9th king raised her hand, her beautiful face like a flower as she praised, Ling Han is still the best, unlike the others who are like spineless cowards, immediately kneeling when they see me. Pooh! The people nearby almost spat blood when they heard this. This was reverence, okay? Her Majesty had said that seeing the 9th king was like seeing the emperor, and who dared not to pay respects to her? But Ling Han was clearly treacherous, not kneeling when seeing a king, and actually became having a backbone when seeing her. Ling Han only clasped his hands in greeting, and said, Greetings, 9th king. There were 3 female guards following behind the 9th king, and they were all in the peak stage of the low extreme of the mountain river tier. Seeing Ling Han's lack of respect, they immediately scowled and glared at him. This king has given special permission that Ling Han does not need to kneel, the 9th king hurriedly said to prevent the 3 guards from flying into a rage. Hearing the 9th king say so, the 3 female guards could only obediently keep their mouths shut. Seeing the 9th king was like seeing the emperor, this was also applicable to them, so how could they dare to disobey? Ling Han, this time, it's all thanks to you that big sister has praised me properly. The 9th king smiled like a flower, and drew out a pill bottle, handing it to Ling Han. This is a Jade Sun pill, which has the effect of increasing cultivation level. About a year, right? This is my gift to you. Chapter 945. The 9th king actually gave something in public to a man. This shocked the people of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire so much that their eyeballs almost popped out. They found it unbelievable and unacceptable. Aside from the 9th king who had only appeared a few years ago, the other 8 kings had joined the Chaotic Star's majestic empire since 1,000,000 years ago, and were conferred the title of king. In reality, they didn't have the slightest bit of merit. It was all decided by the Empress alone, and they were conferred the title of king. But the facts proved that the Empress's judgment was indeed brilliant. After a long time, the 8 kings all advanced into the heavenly body tier, but no one knew exactly which tier they had reached. Thus, when the 9th king appeared, the citizens naturally thought that in less than a few tens of thousands of years, this lord would also become a great elite of the heavenly body tier. However, the previous 8 kings and the Empress all had one similarity: they were all ruthless towards men, keeping them at arm's length. In everyone's opinion, the 9th king should be no exception. Thus, when the 9th king specially came over to deliver pills, everyone was naturally dumbfounded. They could not believe it no matter what. Ling Han took the pill bottle, smiled, and said, "Thank you, 9th king." He knew that the 9th king was innocent and pure to the extreme. She didn't scheme at all, and didn't have any thoughts of love. It was completely because he helped the chaotic star's majestic empire obtain first place, causing the ninth king to be praised by the empress. She was happy, and wanted to express her gratitude. It was that simple. Alright, then don't die inside. See you later. The ninth king waved her hand, and ran off again. Lin Yu's mouth was so wide open that a fist could fit inside. After a long while, he finally delivered a punch to Ling Han's chest, and said in a strange voice, "Good lad, I had not thought that you would actually take down the ninth king without making a sound. Hiss, probably no one would dare make a move against you now." The ninth king represented the empress's will. If she was good to Ling Han, who would dare to make a move against him? Ling Han only smiled, but shook his head internally. How could things be so simple? Killing people in the mystery realm, who would know who was the one who did it? Could it be that the ninth king could kill everyone? If something happened to the ninth king, perhaps the empress of the chaotic star's majestic empire would really slaughter everyone that had entered to quell her fury. However, she would definitely not do so for his sake. To put it bluntly, who does he think he is? Ling Han put away the pill bottle. The Jade Sun pill could save a warrior a year's worth of cultivation time. This was almost insignificant in the long lifespan of an immortal, but for him, it was extremely useful. Perhaps after he refined this medicinal pill, he would be able to reach the limit of 20 stars of strength. Since he had nothing to do, he might as well take the medicine and refine it right here. Who dares touch me? Under the watchful eyes of so many people, Ling Han was actually the safest. Anyone who dared to make a move at this moment would be openly making an enemy out of the ninth king. Most likely, even the left and right ministers and the 7 great generals would not dare to do so. Shui Yanyu could only grimace in response. She was astonished by this man's audacity. Ling Han swallowed the pill and immediately circulated his 6 techniques as one to absorb the medicinal power within. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth instantly rolled over, and as if it had materialized, it wrapped around Ling Han. A spirit base of 6 elements attracted the spiritual chi of 6 different elements, which turned into 6 colorful pillars of chi. Seeing these spiritual chi pillars, a considerable number of people were moved. What's so strange about it? Isn't it just attracting spiritual chi? Someone said disdainfully. It's not strange to attract the spiritual chi of 6 different elements at the same time. Even if one doesn't have a spirit base innately, it can be forged later on, and become a perfect spirit base that balances the 6 elements. But the problem is, why is this spiritual chi pillar so thick? It's very shocking. When I was in the Shattering Void tier, the spiritual chi pillar that I attracted was at most 1% as thick as this one. With this reminder, whether it was the Shattering Void tier or the Mountain River tier, they all looked shocked. No wonder this person was absolutely invincible in the Shattering Void tier. He had indeed cultivated the Shattering Void tier to an almost perfect level. TSK, he's only invincible in the Shattering Void tier. Once he advances into the Mountain River tier, he'll be trash. That's right, he only climbed to the 8th level, and is only a 4-star genius. Even a 2-star genius would only need to reach the peak stage of the low extreme to be able to suppress him. Some people said sourly, but after saying these words, even they themselves couldn't help but be speechless. He had just entered the low extreme of the Mountain River tier, and already possessed battle prowess that rivaled the early stage of the medium extreme. How shocking was this? Only a 4-star genius. Did you know how many 4-star geniuses there were in the Chaotic Star's majestic empire? He only has the potential to become a 4-star genius, it's not certain that he can. In the end, those people tried to smooth things over. Ling Han naturally wouldn't take these idle words to heart. Under the effect of the medicinal effects, spiritual chi was like a pillar that surged madly into his body, endlessly transforming into his own origin power. His power was rapidly increasing, charging towards the limit of 20 stars. Because he had always been cultivating the 9 Dragons Tyrant body art, added with the resources of the immortal realm, he, a mere Shattering Void tier cultivator, naturally reached the peak stage of body arts very quickly, and was only lacking in the level of origin power. In reality, with the abundant resources of the immortal realm, it could easily send a cultivator to the level of 20 stars of shattering void tier. The difficulty was whether your body could withstand such power. Your dantian wasn't big enough, and your spiritual ocean wasn't wide enough, so how could it contain so much origin power? It would definitely be filled to the point of bursting. It was like a person who was obviously extremely wealthy, yet was sick, unable to eat delicious food, unable to touch a beautiful wife. Then what meaning was there to such wealth? Ling Han's cultivation of the 6 techniques as one had opened the final door, allowing his body to contain the limit of 20 stars of power. When he comprehended the key to this, then what was then left was only time to fill up him. Now that the 9th king had gifted him a Jade Sun pill, it just so happened to fill up this shortcoming. However, after a day, Ling Han stopped. He opened his eyes, and a smile appeared on his face. Shui Yanyu was shocked. When you look at me, it actually gives me a feeling that I don't dare to meet your eyes. Ling Han laughed, and teased, that's natural. Don't you know that a husband is a wife? It's natural for you to be afraid of me. Shui Yanyu glared fiercely at him, but was still very shocked. One had to know that she was in the mountain river tier, and was actually stunned by the gaze of a shattering void tier cultivator. What kind of logic was this? She was startled, and felt that even breathing was a little difficult. She said, You couldn't have advanced your power to 20 stars, right? Smart, as expected of my wife, Ling Han praised. Strength, 20 stars. These few words flew in Shui Yenyu's head, and she was so shocked that she forgot to refute Ling Han's teasing. She knew that Ling Han would definitely reach the power of 20 stars of shattering void tier one day, but she never thought that it would be so soon. She looked at Ling Han, filled with shock. This man might become a great achievement that everyone could only look up to. Chapter 946. The Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm is about to open. Someone called out, and everyone gathered into the sky. Ling Han couldn't help but follow them into the sky. Previously, it was still a clear sky, but in that instant, the sky was actually torn apart, revealing a massive ocean. It was unknown how wide it was, but the waves were billowing, and there was a terrifying divine sense interweaving, making one's heart tremble with fear. Long, the desolate plains ahead also split open, revealing a massive hole in the ground. Suddenly, a pillar of water rose from the sky, turning into a waterfall that surged towards the sky. The waterfall surged towards the sky, connecting with the ocean in the sky. Instantly, endless waves flowed against the sky. The sound of the water was like thunder, suppressing all other sounds. At this time, even if someone shouted with all their might, they wouldn't be able to hear what they were saying. Ling Han was shocked. This was too spectacular. An ocean appeared in the sky, so vast that it seemed like it could destroy the whole Joint Peace planet if it poured down. And the water underground actually flowed into the sky, completely going against the norm. Now, he finally knew why this mystery realm was called Heavenly Sea. The Heavenly Sea lived up to its name. Everyone could only communicate with divine sense now. Their sense of hearing was completely disabled, and there was only the endless sound of the waves. That's the Heavenly Sea. No one can go to the top to see if there are living beings in that ocean, and if there's an end, Lin Yu said ruefully. Lin Yu sighed ruefully on the side. There was once an elite of the heavenly body tier who steered a galactic-level battleship and entered it, but a wave slapped over, and the battleship turned into dust. That elite didn't even have time to escape, and was killed along with his physical body. Heavenly body tier was synonymous with invincibility on the Joint Peace planet, but even heavenly body tier elites were like this, so the Heavenly Sea naturally became a forbidden zone. There's something. Someone pointed at the waterfall that connected heaven and earth. Ling Han focused his gaze, and there was a white object flashing in the waterfall, but he couldn't see clearly what it was. This was very shocking. A waterfall flowing in reverse was a very strange thing in itself, but there was actually something in the heavenly sea that was flowing in reverse, which was even more unacceptable. Ling Han activated the Eye of Truth, and that white object finally made him vaguely see. It's a piece of metal. White metal. Heavens, the waves there could easily shatter a battle at the galaxy tier and kill an elite of the heavenly body tier. Now, there's actually a piece of metal that's still intact. The metal must be extremely heavy. Otherwise, how could it fall against the waterfall? Top-grade godly metal. It's definitely top-grade godly metal. It can be forged into the most powerful artifact in the world. It can even block the destructive power of the heavenly sea. Is there any power in the world that can destroy it? That was an elite of the heavenly body tier, and being able to move them, the value of this piece of godly metal could be imagined. In an instant, everyone's eyes burned with passion. One had to know that this piece of godly metal had fallen into some heavenly sea mystery realm. That's right, the heavenly sea mystery realm was not that vast ocean in the sky. Even heavenly body tier elites would be directly killed if they entered, so wouldn't others be seeking death if they went? The mystery realm was underground, and only when the heavenly sea appeared would this mystery realm appear. Otherwise, even if you dug a hole through the joint peace planet, you would not be able to find it. Ling Han was also tempted. Top-grade godly metal, who wouldn't want it? Furthermore, others might not be able to forge this kind of godly metal, but he had the Black Tower, so he should be able to, right? Small Tower, can you do it? He couldn't help but ask. I haven't arrived yet, so how would I know? Small Tower humphed. However, as long as it's godly metal, it's a piece of cake. Ling Han caught the hidden meaning in its words, and said, in other words, there is something even sturdier than godly metal that even you can't refine? Of course, why don't you think about what material the Black Tower was forged from? Small Tower said proudly. What was forged from? Ling Han asked. He was indeed very curious. Divine metal. This time, Small Tower didn't say something like, your cultivation level is too low, so it's useless to tell you. Above godly metal is divine metal. However, godly metal is divided into many grades, and though there are many types of divine metal, there is only one grade, only yes and no. Every piece of divine metal has its own special intelligence, and possesses great might. According to the legends, we'll talk again if you can really obtain divine metal. Small Tower started to keep them guessing again. As they spoke, that piece of white metal had already slid into the ground. The heavenly sea mystery realm has already opened, hurry up and enter. If we don't enter now, when will we? We must find that piece of godly metal. Whoever brings back that piece of godly metal for me will be heavily rewarded. The important figures spoke one after another, urging everyone to go down. At the same time, they also offered shocking conditions, wanting to obtain that piece of top-grade godly metal. It couldn't be helped, they couldn't enter the mystery realm, so they could only place their hopes on these juniors. It could be imagined that in order to fight for this piece of godly metal, there would definitely be a bloody struggle. Let's go. Ling Han pulled Shui Yenyu's hand. If they entered at different times, then they would appear in different places after entering the mystery realm. Blockhead, wait for me. Li Weiwei hurriedly chased after him. Fourth young miss. Tang Feng stopped her. He still wanted to be alone with Li Weiwei, so he naturally didn't want another outsider. Damn it. Li Weiwei reached out and struck. Her battle prowess naturally couldn't pose the slightest threat to Tang Feng, but when she struck out with her palm, a string of beads on her wrist emitted a brilliant light. Peng! Tang Feng was instantly sent flying, spitting out a mouthful of blood. God tool. Tang Feng thought. Moreover, it was definitely not an ordinary god tool, or else shattering void tier cultivators definitely wouldn't be able to activate it. It should have been tempered by the left minister in various ways. Because of the bloodline connection, Li Weiwei could activate its might. Ling Han grabbed Shui Yenyu's hand. Hong, The sound of water rumbled, ringing in his ears. The waves here were very large, but there were no interweaving divine patterns. Thus, shattering void tier cultivators wouldn't die if they were hit, but if they weren't strong enough, they would still spit out a pillar of blood. More importantly, the waves here surged towards the sky, but the mystery realm was at the very bottom. Thus, they had to overcome this opposing force, or they wouldn't even be qualified to enter into the mystery realm. Ling Han displayed his nature-defying side. His power of 20 stars erupted, and he moved against the current as if he were walking on flat ground. And his physique was really too strong. When the water hit him, it was as if they were giving him a massage. "You're too slow," Shui Yenyu said through her divine sense. "Go into that spatial god tool, I'll bring you in." Ling Han couldn't help but grimace. How could he take the Black Tower out? It was usually hidden in his dantian, and when he hid inside, the Black Tower would also shrink to the size of a mustard seed, and wouldn't emit the slightest bit of aura. If he wanted to hide inside, Shui Yenyu wouldn't even be able to find him, so how could he bring him along? "Hee, since you're strong, then bring me along. In any case, my skin is thick and my flesh is thick. No matter how fast you are, this water can't hurt me." He couldn't explain the special characteristics of the Black Tower to Shui Yenyu either. Shui Yenyu grabbed his wrist instead, and her figure suddenly sped up. Chapter 947. Yan Jun and the others were all slightly hesitant. This guy's behavior was far too strange. Even if he was really scared, shouldn't he just toss the realm spirit stones onto the ground and run away? Was he trying to make fun of them? However, an elite at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier was right in front of him, and he still dared to make trouble? A young man stepped forward, and said, "Fine, leave it to me." There was a look of ambition in his eyes. If he could personally bring back these 2 realm spirit stones, his status in the sect would definitely rise greatly. Most importantly, Founder Mao was only 1 step away from advancing to the heavenly body tier. If he contributed to this breakthrough, he would definitely be viewed in a new light by Founder Mao. How could he receive the attention of a heavenly body tier elite? After taking 1 step, he immediately took a 2nd step, and then a 3rd step. He arrived in front of Ling Han, and then stretched out his hand to grab the 2 realm spirit stones. Sigh. Ling Han sighed, and his finger curled slightly. "Xiao." A burst of sword chi instantly swept out. "How dare you!" the young man roared. He knew that Ling Han was very powerful, and in fact, he could even suppress Yan Jun. However, his cultivation level had reached the peak stage of the medium extreme, and he was also a 1-star genius. Thus, he was slightly more powerful than Yan Jun. Thus, even if Yan Jun couldn't defeat Ling Han, that didn't mean that he couldn't defeat Ling Han. Taking a step back, even if he couldn't defeat Ling Han, he would at least be able to protect himself. It was precisely because of these thoughts that he dared to step forward. Otherwise, Ling Han just so happened to be a hothead, and what if he wanted to drag others down with him? He hadn't thought that Ling Han would really dare to attack him. Although he had long since been mentally prepared for this, he still couldn't help but feel enraged when this burst of sword light swept toward him. He raised a hand to block the sword light. He thought to himself, "There's an elite at the consummate level behind me right now. If you attack in a moment of impulse, you're actually seeking your own death. It won't be long before you're suppressed." The old man was astonished, and he hurriedly stretched out his hand to grab the sword light. "Stop!" It was too late. The sword light swept over. Pooh! Blood splattered through the air. 4 of the young man's fingers had been sliced off, and they scattered like flowers scattered by a celestial maiden. "Ah!" He instantly screamed in agony. Ling Han activated the star-plucking step, and he hurriedly retreated, dodging the old man's subsequent attack. He chuckled, and said, My fingers have all been sliced off. How am I supposed to retrieve them?" "Brat, you're truly reckless," the old man said with a dark expression. This brat had fallen into a tight encirclement, yet he actually dared to put up a stubborn resistance. He was truly seeking death. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "It's still too early to say who lives and who dies. Young man, you're far too ignorant." The old man humphed, and stretched out his hand to grab Ling Han. Multiple divine patterns appeared, and his hand transformed into a 5-fingered mountain that descended from the sky. His name was Qian Sen, and he was a high-ranking member of the Blazing Inferno sect. Because an elder in the sect had truly come into contact with the borders of the heavenly body tier, this became the most important matter of the Blazing Inferno sect. Everyone was mobilized to search for realm spirit stones for this ancestor Mao. After all, coming into contact with the borders and truly crossing over were two completely different things. Moreover, the Blazing Inferno sect was only a small force at the Sun-Moon tier. If they could produce an elite at the heavenly body tier, then the power of their sect would definitely rise to a whole new level. Under such circumstances, it could be said that the Blazing Inferno sect had truly gone mad for realm spirit stones. Ling Han's eyes widened, and heaven's might instantly burst forth. Wang! Heaven's might surged in all directions. What's going on? Why has my power suddenly plummeted? Heavens! Yan Jun and the others all exclaimed in astonishment. Even Qian Sen's descending hand had slightly deviated from its original trajectory. However, because this hand was far too large, it didn't matter even if it had deviated slightly. It still continued to descend toward Ling Han's head. Ling Han clenched his fist and punched toward the 5-finger mountain in the sky. The power of his fist condensed into a single point. Pooh! The 5-finger mountain descended, yet a burst of divine light soared into the sky. A hole had been blasted into the hand, and the light from the fist was dazzling. Qian Sen couldn't help but groan in pain. Although the 5-finger mountain had been formed from his origin power, his hand had still received a slight impact when a hole had been blasted into it. He felt an intense pain in his palm, and a red mark had also been left behind. He was slightly astonished. This young man was so powerful. He had actually been able to pierce through his defenses and wound his body. Of course, this was because he had underestimated Ling Han far too much. The area that his attack had enveloped was far too vast, and the power of his attack had been dispersed like this. Even though he was millions of times more powerful than Ling Han, he was still greatly weakened. However, on the other hand, if he had restricted his power and attacked in a point-to-point manner, his attack would have most likely missed because he had been suddenly affected by heaven's might just then. "Young man, you're very impressive," he said in a menacing voice. Although he was praising Ling Han, he didn't conceal his surging killing intent at all. Ling Han smiled modestly, and said, "I'm just a so-so. There's no need for you to praise me like this, old man. This will make me proud. We young people should be careful not to be arrogant." Qian Sen's expression finally changed. Ling Han's calm expression caused him to be unable to control his fury. "Do you insist on seeking death?" He widened his left eye, and it actually transformed into a blazing hole. He then stretched his hand into it, and grabbed a divine sword. Its entire body was burning with flames. Using one's own body to nurture a god tool could push the might of the god tool to the pinnacle. However, there was also an obvious flaw, and that was that the growth of the god tool would come at the cost of the user's blood essence. This would affect the user's cultivation. However, for someone like Qian Sen, he was already standing at the peak stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. It was impossible for him to advance any further. Thus, he didn't mind expending some blood essence. In any case, he could replenish it with some cultivation. This divine sword was something that he had accumulated over 100 years ago. He had bought a piece of level 8 godly metal and ordered someone to forge it into a sword. Then, he had kept it in his body to nourish the god tool. Although it had only been over 100 years, it had already reached great accomplishment. With this sword in hand, he was confident that he could defeat most opponents at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. A suitable divine weapon would be a great boost to a martial artist. Raging flames burn the heart. Qian Sen slashed out with his sword, and the raging flames transformed into a beam of light that pierced toward Ling Han's chest. Because of the terrifying heat, ripples appeared in the air as the beam of light swept past. Then, they all burst into flames. This was extremely terrifying. To say nothing of coming into contact with these terrifying flames, just the high temperature that they emanated was enough to skin cultivators at the early stage of the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. The others all retreated, afraid that they would come into contact with these flames. If that happened, they wouldn't even know how they died. However, Ling Han couldn't help but chuckle. If you used poisonous water and sharp metal to attack him, he would really be a bit wary. After all, Qian Sen was at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. However, it just had to be flames. One had to realize that he had been burned by immortal flames before, and he had derived the secret technique of the immortal phoenix tribe that allowed them to rise from the ashes. If one wanted to defeat him with fire, they would have to at least crush him in terms of cultivation level. Chapter 948. Silver-horned wild rhino, Shui Yanyu exclaimed softly. Is it very strong? Ling Han asked. His knowledge of immortal-level demonic beasts was naturally close to zero, and this should be the first immortal-level demonic beast he had seen. This kind of demonic beast is comparable to a 2-star genius of the same level, Shui Yanyu said solemnly. It is mainly reflected in its silver horn, which is extremely sharp, and its own body is also extraordinarily strong. Its defense is relatively shocking, and its only shortcoming is that its speed is slightly slow. As they spoke, this silver-horned wild rhino was also digging its hooves, and the image of a large mountain appeared behind it, but there was no river. This meant that its cultivation level had not reached the late stage of the low extreme, or else the image of a river would appear. And the size and materiality of this mountain should have reached the middle stage of the low extreme. Its true battle prowess is comparable to the peak stage of the low extreme. Shui Yanyu compared the battle prowess between the two. We only have a 20% chance of victory. Hey, you didn't take my battle prowess into account? Ling Han called out. It is precisely because of you that we only have a 20% chance of victory. Otherwise, we could have a 30% chance, Shui Yanyu said casually. Ha, are you finding me a hindrance? How laughable. Shui Yanyu shook her head, and said, the chance of victory is too small, it's better not to fight. Ling Han also shook his head, and said, it's too late, this barbaric bull doesn't seem to plan on letting us go. Hong, long, that silver-horned wild rhino charged towards them. Its speed was indeed not too fast, but its weight was too terrifying. Thus, after it charged, its destructive power was incredibly shocking, and the ground behind it collapsed. This was also because the regulations of heaven and earth here were not stable enough, or else the low extreme of the mountain river tier could not possibly have such destructive power. This guy's true size should be even larger than a mountain, and shrinking to this size, the impact is incredibly terrifying, Shui Yanyu said solemnly. Ling Han smiled slightly, and said, I will create an opportunity, and you kill it with one strike. You're crazy, you're only in the shattering void tier. Shui Yanyu exclaimed. Don't forget, even you can't do anything to my defense, Ling Han said. When she thought of the first battle between the two of them, Shui Yanyu's face flushed red, and she couldn't help but call him a pervert in her mind. At the same time, a strange emotion welled up in her body, causing her to reminisce about it. She hurriedly shook her head in fright, not daring to continue thinking about it. Peng, 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 the silver-horned wild rhinoceros had already rushed over, as if a mountain had crashed over. Ling Han stepped out bravely and activated the Eye of Truth. He raised his right palm and circulated the earth-overturning seal and thunderclap ninth heaven divine arts, then fiercely slapped out with his palm, attacking the silver-horned wild rhino's eyes. The rhinoceros had no intention of dodging at all. It lowered its head slightly, and then raised its head. Peng, its silver horn crashed into Ling Han's chest, instantly lifting him up, and then fiercely sending him flying. Ling Han was like a cannonball, flying straight out. His full-powered attack did not even wound a single hair of the rhinoceros. Demonic beasts were born with thick skin and flesh, and the physique of at least the mountain river tear was definitely not something that a shattering void tear cultivator could penetrate. This was completely different from martial artists. Shui Yanyu, however, took the opportunity to attack. With a horizontal slash, her sword sliced towards the neck of the silver-horned wild rhinoceros. However, this big guy suddenly turned around, and with its back facing Shui Yanyu, its legs suddenly sprang up, and kicked at her. Peng Shui Yanyu was also sent flying, but she was also in the low extreme of the mountain river tier, after all. In terms of power, she might be slightly inferior, but not by too much. After somersaulting over a dozen times in the air, her momentum was finally dissipated. It was only a single strike, and this large rhinoceros had fully displayed its power, gaining the upper hand. Ling Han crawled up, and touched his chest. His clothes were naturally torn, and there was actually a bloody mark on his chest. It was a slight cut, and a bloody mark had appeared. As expected of the name Silver Horn, its destructive power is indeed astonishing. Even my physique could not completely defend against it, Ling Han mumbled to himself. But if this scene was seen by others, they would definitely be shocked to the point of disbelief. A mere shattering void tear cultivator could actually take a blow from a mountain river tear cultivator head-on, and it was only a bloody mark. One had to know that the silver-horned wild rhinoceros was most famous for its single horn. Its destructive power was astonishing, and even lions and tiger-type demonic beasts of the same level would not dare to take a blow from its horn head-on. It would definitely be heavily wounded, or even fatal. Seeing this, Shui Yanyu breathed a sigh of relief. Though she was already mentally prepared, her small mouth still gaped into a circle. She probably wouldn't be able to get used to it for the rest of her life. Ling Han laughed loudly, and retreated, charging towards the silver-horned wild rhinoceros again. "Senior sister, let's cooperate," he said. "Listen to my orders and attack." Shui Yanyu immediately wanted to object. "I'm obviously stronger than you, and who knows how many times stronger, so why am I the one listening to your orders?" But in this situation, she could not afford to throw a tantrum. She could only suppress this kind of dissatisfaction in her heart, and settle the score with Ling Han later. She also charged towards the silver-horned wild rhinoceros with her sword, but she was not in a hurry to brandish her sword. Instead, she waited for Ling Han's orders. "Attack!" Ling Han shouted. Wang, he, too, activated the 7-kill subduing soul technique, and charged towards the silver-horned wild rhinoceros. This demonic beast was currently charging towards Ling Han, and its silver horn was already about to reach Ling Han's chest. This spiritual attack naturally could not be avoided, and was instantly struck head-on. Its legs gave way, and its head tilted to the side. Its silver horn missed Ling Han, and crashed diagonally towards the side. Shui Yanyu took the opportunity to attack, and slashed at the silver-horned wild rhinoceros's neck. Ding! There was a flash of sparks. Though the sword had slashed into the large rhinoceros's neck, it did not penetrate deeply into the flesh. And under the pain, the silver-horned wild rhinoceros immediately recovered its senses, and released a furious roar. It suddenly shook its head, and sent Ling Han flying again. Then, it increased its speed and charged, causing the sword to leave its body. Fresh blood continuously dripped from its neck. This demonic beast had been enraged, and its body suddenly expanded to 10 times its original size. Its pitch-black body exuded a feeling of endless power. Peng, peng, peng. The ground around it actually sank, as if it had been crushed by a mountain range. This demonic beast's mountain river possesses a special attribute, Ling Han said in surprise. The left minister had once mentioned that there were some mountain river stones here that possessed special attributes, such as producing a frightening gravitational force. And now, what this demonic beast was displaying was precisely supergravity. I think, it is not that the demonic beasts here cannot refine mountain river stones, but rather that they innately possess a special ability in this area. Ling Han suddenly thought of a possibility. Regardless of whether that is the case or not, how should we resolve this situation now? Shui Yanyu leapt over, holding a sword in her hand, appearing very heroic. But she was also the type that was as charming as water, and the intertwining of these two styles was like a fatal poison. Ling Han took another look, and then said, just like before, I will numb it, and you can take the opportunity to attack. Its physique is not so strong that it cannot be dealt with. Shui Yanyu turned around, and asked, can you hold on? Are you concerned about me? Ling Han asked with a smile. I don't care if you die. Chapter 949. The silver-horned mad rhinoceros charged over again. Peng, 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 it used the special ability of mountain and river, and as it charged over, the ground was severely compressed, and the rocks that flew up were all compressed into powder. In its gravitational field, how many people could still maintain their normal battle prowess? As it neared, Ling Han's godly bones clanged. If it were a shattering void tier cultivator, they would definitely be instantly compressed into minced meat, and even a mountain river tier cultivator would suffer the same fate if they didn't use origin power to protect themselves. However, Ling Han's bones only clanged a few times. His physique on the level of godly metal was too strong. Ling Han used the same trick again, and shot out another 7-kill subduing soul technique, causing the silver-horned mad rhinoceros to once again fall into a dazed state, and the gravity in the surroundings instantly recovered. Shui Yanyu took the opportunity to strike with her sword, and struck on the silver-horned mad rhinoceros's wound. This was adding injury to injury, and the silver-horned mad rhinoceros was finally heavily wounded. It let out a pained cry, and its 4 hooves jumped about, trampling the ground into a mess. Again. Ling Han and Shui Yanyu continued to cooperate, and after over a dozen times, they finally killed this demonic beast. Fortunately, the demonic beasts here were too intelligent, or else they would have fled after suffering a few losses. With its physique and speed, the possibility of escaping was still relatively high. Shui Yanyu didn't dare to believe that such a powerful demonic beast actually died under her sword. What secret technique did you use to actually make the silver-horned mad rhinoceros slow? Shui Yanyu asked in surprise. If not, how could she have succeeded so easily? Hee hee. Ling Han only smiled, not wanting to reveal his trump card. Shui Yanyu couldn't help but feel annoyed, but when she thought that the two of them were only pretending to be lovers, what right did she have to make Ling Han reveal his trump card to her? If it wasn't for the fact that Ling Han didn't want to reveal the secret of the Black Tower, he could directly draw the silver-horned mad rhinoceros into the Black Tower after it lost consciousness, and then he could easily decide the life and death of this immortal-level demonic beast. Ling Han's strength was not enough, so Shui Yanyu used her long sword to slice open the silver-horned wild rhino's body. After searching for a long while, she finally took out a piece of flesh that was only the size of a little finger. Unlike other meats, this piece of meat was snow-white and had a fragrant aroma. It weighed at most 50 grams. Spirit meat. The most precious part of a demonic beast was a great supplement to a martial artist. It could greatly increase one's cultivation and replenish one's yuan qi. Shui Yanyu sawed off the silver horn. Even though this demonic beast was very big, the only valuable parts were its spiritual meat and its silver horn. I heard that if you grind a rhinoceros horn cow into powder, eating it can boost your sex drive. You're not thinking of giving it to me, are you? Ling Han interrupted. Boom. Shui Yanyu instantly entered into a berserk state. Wielding her sword, she began to chase after Ling Han. After much difficulty, they finally managed to calm her down. The two of them searched carefully again, but they didn't find any mountain river stones in the vicinity. In the end, what does a mountain river stone look like? Ling Han asked. It glows faintly, and you'll be able to recognize it once you see it, Shui Yanyu said. They didn't eat the spiritual meat immediately, but put it away first. Refining the spiritual meat would take a very long time, but they didn't know how long they could stay here. Naturally, they had to make the best use of their time to find mountain river stones and hunt as many demonic beasts as they could to obtain spiritual meat. Of course, that piece of godly metal was also their target. If it was only Ling Han alone, he would definitely lose his way and not know where to go. But now, Shui Yanyu was here. She had a map that had been drawn by countless generations of people after entering into the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm. It was already very detailed. Thus, they weren't worried about running around randomly. With a special weapon like Ling Han, they swept through the area and killed a great many powerful demonic beasts. They also obtained pieces of spiritual meat, which made Shui Yanyu unable to contain her joy. She hadn't thought that their gains would be so great. Regrettably, they still hadn't found a single mountain river stone. This was very normal. How could rare stones possibly be so easy to find? Of course, they weren't invincible. If they encountered demonic beasts in the medium extreme of the mountain river tier, they could only flee. Ling Han's 7-kill subduing soul technique was also completely ineffective. At most, it would only cause them a slight pain. After 3 consecutive days, a canyon appeared in front of them. This was the path that they had to pass to reach the Crimson Lake. They had chosen that place for their next battle. This was a place that would definitely produce mountain river stones. On both sides of the canyon were extremely steep mountain peaks that were filled with danger. They couldn't possibly climb over them, so they had to pass through this canyon. However, this canyon wasn't necessarily that safe. It was only relatively safe. If they wanted to be truly safe, they shouldn't go out at all. It's said that the most dangerous creature in this canyon is a kind of demonic tree. It usually disguises itself and doesn't move, and will only suddenly attack when prey passes by. Once you're entangled by its branches, even those at the peak stage of the low extreme will find it very difficult to break free, Shui Yanyu reminded. The Shui clan is a 5th-rate force, after all. The clan should have made some preparations for you, right? Ling Han asked. Shui Yanyu nodded, and said, flame bombs are very destructive against the demonic tree. However, there are only 3 of them. Are there any treasures on the demonic tree? Ling Han asked excitedly. Shui Yanyu rolled her eyes, and said, no one has ever set their eyes on this canyon. The faster we pass through it, the better. Do you still want to make a fortune here? Can't I? Ling Han was slightly disappointed. Shui Yanyu shook her head, and said, the demonic tree doesn't have any spiritual flesh. At most, its trunk is very hard, and it can be used to make weapons. However, it's not very popular either, because it will be restrained by flames. It has an obvious weakness. Then forget it. Let's hurry through it. Ling Han lost interest. The two of them walked into the canyon. It was frighteningly quiet here, and there were no sounds of insects or beasts. It was as if it was a dead valley, causing one to shiver in fear. There weren't any obvious paths in the canyon, so they walked under the trees. The trees here weren't very tall. The tallest one was only about 30 meters tall, completely incomparable to the trees in the outside world that could easily reach heights of 3,000 meters. But as they walked further ahead, they saw vines growing under the trees, covered with black spikes. These spikes were very sharp, and if one didn't use origin power to defend himself, they could easily pierce through the flesh. Moreover, the spikes were poisonous, and could almost instantly melt the prey into a pool of blood. The vines would absorb the nutrients, leaving only a pile of white bones. It would be difficult to advance further, and they had to open a path. It couldn't be helped. Who asked them to be the first? The two of them began to cut the vines, but didn't set them on fire. That was because it was useless. Ordinary flames couldn't harm these vines at all. They had to specialize in secret techniques of fire, and their cultivation level had to at least reach the mountain river tier. Because this was the immortal realm, shattering void tier cultivators really couldn't do much, and they were just mortals. After a long while, there was movement behind them. They turned around, and saw that someone was coming. Just nice, there's strength in numbers. If we open a path together, we can advance faster, Ling Han said. Be careful, people's hearts are unpredictable, Shui Yanyu warned. Ling Han nodded, and said, I won't attack unless I'm attacked. If they have bad intentions, I'll definitely make them regret it. Chapter 950. You two are quite fast. 3 people walked over from the opposite side. They were all men, and 2 of them were very young. However, they were all in the low extreme of the mountain river tier. The third person was an old man, and the aura he exuded was slightly frightening. This mystery realm only limited one's cultivation level, not age, so whether one could enter or not had nothing to do with talent. Some people were not talented, and barely reaching the immortal level was their limit. They could only stay in the low extreme for the rest of their lives, so these people naturally had no future. But because of the entry restrictions of the Heavenly Sea Mystery Realm, these people had a place to use their abilities. They spent their entire lives in this cultivation level, and also cultivated the low extreme to the extreme, so their battle prowess was somewhat shocking. Even if their talent was far from the level of 1-star geniuses or 2-star geniuses, after spending countless hours, and even taking some secret medicine, they sacrificed further advancement to increase their battle prowess. They had no room to improve in the first place, so this was no loss. They were obviously ordinary, but they could have battle prowess of 3-star geniuses or even 4-star geniuses, just to show their strength in this kind of mystery realm once every 10 years. Obviously, this old man was like this. He was obviously only in the low extreme of the mountain river tier, but the aura he exuded was extremely powerful, far exceeding his cultivation level. Shui Yenyu's heart trembled. Now that they were outnumbered, they would definitely suffer a great loss if they fought. Thankfully, Ling Han was a secret weapon. Who would have thought that a shattering void tier cultivator could pose a threat to a mountain river tier cultivator? She said calmly, why don't the 3 of you open a path together? Our time here is limited, and no one wants to return empty-handed, right? The 3 people on the opposite side all smiled, drawing out sabers, swords, and other weapons to open a path. The 3 of us are from the Lang clan of the Eternity Sky Nation. May I ask how we should address you, fairy? A young man glanced at Shui Yenyu's alluring figure, a strange light flashing in his eyes. Chaotic Stars Emperor. Xiao. Shui Yenyu had just opened her mouth to speak when the 3 of them had already moved in unison to attack her. The 3 of them had obviously discussed this beforehand, and attacked almost at the same time. In their minds, only Shui Yenyu was a threat, and that shattering void tier brat was directly ignored. However, though their attacks were sharp, they all avoided Shui Yenyu's vital parts. Obviously, this attack only wanted to take her down, and not kill her. This was not because they were benevolent, but because they harbored a greater evil intent. Shui Yenyu's pretty face instantly froze, and she scolded, despicable. She slashed out with her sword, and a cold light rippled out. Instantly, the air froze, and the surrounding temperature plummeted. She had long been vigilant. How could she trust a few people whom she had never met? However, it was 3 against 1, and the old man was even more terrifyingly powerful. His strength was almost at the level of a 4-star genius. As he slashed out with his saber, a dazzling golden light shot out. It was as if he could split the heavens and split the earth, causing everyone to tremble uncontrollably. Have the 3 of you forgotten about me? Ling Han smiled and unleashed the 7-kill subduing soul art. A young man immediately froze and fell into a state of stupor. Ling Han seized the opportunity to slash out with his sword, and it struck his neck. Pooh! A spray of fresh blood gushed out, and it was a beautiful sight to behold. Who would have thought that a shattering void tier elite actually had such powerful strength? The remaining two people on the other side faltered. Ding, ding. Shui Yanyu swept her sword horizontally, and clashed with them. Bam! Shui Yanyu was sent flying. That old man was too strong. Even if he was slightly distracted, he was still unstoppable. Fortunately, she used the momentum of being sent flying to disperse the impact she received as much as possible. Though her pretty face was a little pale, she was generally unharmed. Ah! The injured young man screamed. He had already woken up from his stupor. The intense pain caused him to scream involuntarily, and he felt as if his head was about to fall off. Immortal-level cultivators were really hard to kill. Ling Han ridiculed in his mind. Though his skin was easily sliced open, his bones had been tempered to be considerably hard. Though they were far from the level of godly metal, they were still not something that he could slice through with a single strike. What a pity. Ziwei, what's going on? The other two asked, their expressions filled with shock. This was extremely shocking. A mere shattering void tier elite could actually injure an immortal, and even almost kill him. He has cultivated a secret technique that attacked my soul, causing me to fall into a state of stupor. The injured young man thought for a moment, and immediately revealed the reason. Spirit's secret technique, the other two exclaimed in unison. They first looked shocked, then overjoyed. It was common knowledge that though immortals focused on cultivating their spirit, the main purpose of strengthening their spirit was to make it harder for their spirit to be killed. On the other hand, the stronger the spirit, the more they could use the regulations of heaven and earth to increase their battle prowess. However, the spirit itself did not actually participate in attacks. However, there were secret techniques in this world that could turn the spirit into a weapon, attacking the opponent and killing invisibly. This was known as Spirit's secret technique. However, Spirit's secret techniques were very rare, and they all fell into the hands of super great forces, and would definitely not be taught to outsiders. In fact, they would not teach it even to their female descendants unless they were extraordinarily talented and married into the family. Now that they discovered that Ling Han had grasped Spirit's secret technique, how could they not be overjoyed? Snatch it and take it for themselves. Ling Han smiled calmly, and said, "You guys look ugly, but your dreams are pretty good." So what if you've grasped Spirit's secret technique? I have cultivated my spirit for tens of thousands of years, and as long as I guard it with all my strength, how could I be taken advantage of by you? The old man moved, his long saber striking out, slashing towards Ling Han's chest. He wanted to kill Ling Han, and directly extract his memories to obtain this secret technique. There was no need for him to live at all. Elder Yang, a mere shattering void tier cultivator does not need you to act, leave it to me. The uninjured young man moved, wanting to snatch the head. This soul extraction was a one-time use, and after the extraction, the victim would naturally be crippled, but who could guarantee that the old man would share this secret technique with others after obtaining it? Thus, he could only be at ease if he obtained it himself. The two of them both used their killing moves, wanting to kill Ling Han first, and then snatch his corpse, taking advantage of the fresh moment to extract the soul and seize the technique. However, Shui Yanyu had no intention of rescuing him, and instead brandished her sword towards the injured young man. Though this person had not been killed, he was still severely wounded. One hand was clutching his severed neck, and was currently channeling a cultivation technique to reconnect the wound. Otherwise, with his neck severed, he would not even be able to take alchemical pills. Shui Yanyu charged over, and that person could only parry with a single hand. However, once the battle began, he would definitely have to divide his origin power, and blood instantly spurted wildly from his severed neck. Help me, he hurriedly called out. But how could the remaining two pay him any attention, and only stared at Ling Han? The value of Spirit's secret technique was too high, even above that of mountain river stones. After all, this place could be entered once every 10 years, and for those in the low extreme of the mountain river tier, most people would have to stay at this level for tens of thousands of years, so there was naturally no need to rush. Peng, two great mountain river tier elites attacked, and as expected, their attacks landed on Ling Han. Chapter 951. Young Master Han Jinming actually addressed this young man as Young Master Han. One had to realize that even when facing Xie Donglai, Jin Ming would only casually address him as Young Master Xie, and didn't take him seriously. But facing Ling Han, he first clasped his hands in greeting, and then addressed him as Young Master Han. Just how much face was this? What he didn't know was that Jin Ming didn't need to be so polite at first, but who told him to chase Ling Han out? Now that he was going to invite Ling Han back, how could he not be polite? He couldn't help but be stunned. When he recalled that Ling Han had asked him whether he would regret it, he had naturally scoffed at the question. Now, however, he truly regretted it. Who was this young man? Why did he receive such high regard from Jin Ming? Lord Jin. Ling Han immediately stood up. Jin Ming was a heavenly body tier elite, so if he sat down casually, that would be far too arrogant. Jin Ming nodded, and said, I'm really sorry. I didn't manage my subordinates well, and caused young Master Han to suffer. Ha! Ling Han only chuckled, and turned his gaze toward Jin Xian, and asked, who is this? Jin Xian couldn't help but grimace, and thought, I just chased you out, so how could you not recognize me after turning around? This guy is clearly deliberately mocking me. If it weren't for Jin Ming, he would probably have given him a slap. After cultivating for over 2 million years, he had also reached the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. In his eyes, suppressing a cultivator in the low extreme was naturally an extremely easy task. Now, however, he could only grimace. What did Jin Ming say? Jin Xian, hurry up and apologize to young Master Han, Jin Ming said in a low voice. Here it comes, as expected. Jin Xian was indignant, and he asked, dare I ask Lord Jin Ming, where did I go wrong? If he casually apologized, then where would he put his face? If Jin Ming wanted face, then he would be shameless as well. Although Jin Ming's status was higher than his, he was still a member of the Jin clan. Thus, he could still disobey unreasonable orders. Otherwise, if this matter were brought to the clan's law enforcement hall, who would be able to stand? Humph! Jin Ming chuckled coldly. He really wanted to slap this idiot to death. He didn't have any ability, and only knew how to fight for power and profit. He didn't look at the big picture at all, and his vision was so narrow that it was hair-raising. He said, this is young Master Han. He's the person who provided the realm spirit stone for this auction. Huh? Jin Xian's heart couldn't help but tremble. Only now did he understand why Jin Ming valued Ling Han so much. As it turned out, Ling Han was a major customer. It could be said that the reason why the auction this time had been held to such a high standard was because of the palm-sized realm spirit stone. This was because the larger the realm spirit stone, the more complete the regulations contained within it would be, and the easier it would be for cultivators to comprehend them. Thus, even if 10 realm spirit stones were as large as this one, in terms of value, it would still be far less than this one. However, Jin Ming was only a seller, so was there a need to give him such a high standard? He had only obtained such a large realm spirit stone because he had been lucky. Was there a need to lower the price? Hurry up and apologize. Jin Ming was getting impatient, and the thought of chasing Jin Ming back to the main clan rose in his mind. Keeping such an idiot by his side was practically more of a hindrance than a help. Jin Xian's expression flickered between red and green, but he still compromised, and said, I've offended you just then. Please forgive me, young Master Han. If he angered Ling Han and cancelled the auction of the realm spirit stone, the Jin clan would undoubtedly become the laughingstock of the world. Moreover, As one of the main culprits, it would definitely be difficult for him to escape the clan's punishment. Therefore, after considering this point, he still gave in. Ling Han shook his head, and said, I don't know you. Jin Xian couldn't help but fly into a rage. Ling Han's meaning was very simple. He didn't accept his apology. He was merely at the low extreme of the sun-moon tier, so what was he being so arrogant about? Jin Ming opened his mouth, and said in a low voice, Jin Xian, if you chased a level 8 alchemist out of the auction house, what do you think you should do to appease him? Jin Xian faltered upon hearing this. What did Jin Ming mean? Could it be that Ling Han was a level 8 alchemist? What a joke. How old was this guy? He definitely couldn't be over 1,000 years old. He could be considered a prodigy in cultivation, but if he was a grandmaster of alchemy. How could one improve in alchemy? One had to refine cauldron after cauldron of alchemical pills, and that was a matter of actual time. It wasn't like cultivation. If you were lucky enough to eat a divine pill, you might immediately jump from a mortal to the heavenly body tier. A level 8 alchemist who wasn't even 1,000 years old. What a colossal joke. Do you think I'm joking with you? Jin Ming chuckled coldly. If that weren't the case, how could he possibly treat Ling Han so seriously? So what if Ling Han was a powerful seller? The gap between the sun-moon tier and the heavenly body tier was as wide as the heavens and earth. Jin Xian's heart jolted. If Jin Ming was joking with him about this, then it would be a joke in itself. Could it be that Ling Han was really a level 8 alchemist? His expression changed drastically. If news of him kicking a level 8 alchemist out of the auction house got out, he would really lose a layer of skin. Alchemists had a transcendent status. Furthermore, this group was relatively united. If you offended an alchemist, especially if you offended them for no reason at all, the entire group of alchemists would view you as an enemy. At that time, there wouldn't be a single alchemist willing to sell their alchemical pills to the Gold Origin auction house. That would be a massive blow to their clan. Moreover, as the fuse and the main culprit, he would definitely be severely punished by the clan. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. His legs weakened, and he knelt down, saying, Young Master Han, I was blind. Everything is my fault, please forgive me. He kowtowed endlessly, tears and snot streaming down his face. Jin Ming was so furious that he almost slapped this guy to death. He had asked Jin Xian to apologize, but this wasn't the way he had done it. Now that Jin Xian was kneeling, not only was he losing face, but he was also losing face for the Jin clan. This idiot, he was truly an idiot. He definitely couldn't stay here any longer. Oh, so it's you. Ling Han clapped his hands together. It was as if he had suddenly remembered who Jin Xian was. Jin Xian wiped off his cold sweat, and it seemed like he had managed to deal with it. As long as Ling Han didn't act stubbornly and let the auction proceed smoothly, then he would apologize and pretend that nothing had happened. However, he didn't know that Jin Ming had already sentenced him to a death sentence. It wouldn't be long before he was forced to return to the main clan. He would then add a few words of criticism, and he would no longer be able to make a name for himself in the Jin clan. He would only be able to live a mediocre life. Young Master Han, please. Jin Ming couldn't be bothered to be angry, and he smiled at Ling Han. Milord, please. Ling Han was also very polite. The two of them walked side by side toward the auction house. Ling Han purposefully lagged behind by half a step to show his respect for an elite of the heavenly body tier. This made Jin Ming very satisfied. This young man wasn't arrogant because of his talent, nor did he push his luck. Meanwhile, Jin Xian followed behind them. He still wanted to establish a good relationship with Ling Han and curry favor with him. In his eyes, Ling Han now had the halo of a level 8 alchemist, and his value had instantly skyrocketed. Chapter 952. Xiao, A black arrow immediately turned into a streak of light and shot toward the young man's back. How could the young man have imagined that with the old man holding him back, Ling Han would still be able to attack him? Furthermore, this arrow was really too fast. It was practically at the level of the low extreme of the mountain river tier. Elder Yang. The young man roared. You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? You want the two of them to die so that you can take the secret technique for yourself. He barely managed to turn around and slashed with his sword. But this arrow of Ling Han's contained two mystical powers, and the Eye of Truth had long since aimed at the weakest spot of his defenses. Added with the fact that the arrow that he shot out was forged from level 1 godly metal, how sharp was it? Xiao, the black arrow passed through his sword's shadow and shot into his body. Fortunately, he turned his body in time, avoiding the vital point of his heart. The arrow hit in his shoulder, causing blood to blossom. Ah! The youth's expression completely changed. Those arrows have annihilation divine runes on them. Peng, his shoulder suddenly exploded, and he lost half of his body. A god's life force was too strong. Even this didn't kill him. The young man swayed and hurriedly took out a bottle of water and poured it on his body. Immediately, a green light appeared, and his body quickly recovered. However, his heart ached to death. This was a life-saving divine liquid bestowed upon him by his clan. Not only was it extremely rare, it could only be used once in a person's lifetime. It would be ineffective the second time. This meant that if he were to encounter another life-threatening situation in the arcane realm, he would not have another chance to live. However, the effects of the divine liquid were immediate. The half of his body that had been blown apart was regenerating at an astonishing speed. Right at this moment, boom, countless black shadows shot toward him like sharp arrows. At this moment, in the eyes of that young man, there were only two dangers, Ling Han and Shui Yenyu. How could he have imagined that there would be a third party charging over? He was completely unguarded, and was instantly entangled by the black shadow. Furthermore, these were branches that originated from a large tree in the canyon. Demonic tree, ah! The young man let out a shrill and mournful cry. Those branches had pierced into his wounds and were continuously absorbing his life essence. The strength of this demon tree was already very terrifying. Even if he was at his peak, he would have to pay a great price to break free. Now that he was heavily injured, how could he resist? His body immediately shriveled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. That was because his flesh and blood had been absorbed by the demonic tree, which contained the life essence of a martial artist. Demonic tree, how dare you? The elder from the Lang clan could no longer be bothered with Ling Han, and hurriedly slashed out with his blade. It was indeed very strong, but it had no effect on Ling Han. That was because Ling Han's physique was too inhuman. However, the demon tree was not Ling Han. After being struck by a few moves, it had no choice but to let go of its branches and retreat. Its roots were in the depths of the canyon, where it was the strongest. But that young man was already heavily injured in the first place, and now that he had been sucked by the demonic beast, he practically became a dried corpse. Even if he was not dead, he was not far from it. Ah! The elder had just picked up the young man when he heard a scream behind him. He turned around, and saw that the other young man's heart had been pierced through by Shui Yenyu's sword. Then, he had definitely died completely. The elder was both furious, and his whole body started to tremble. This result was definitely not within his expectations. It was clearly only a mountain river tier and a shattering void tier cultivator, so how could they turn around and cause them heavy injuries? His talent was not outstanding, and he had already used up all his potential when he charged into the mountain river tier. However, the clan spared no expense and gave him a great many mountain river stones to refine. Their goal was to make him practically invincible in the low extreme, and earn more mountain river stones for the clan. In the last 10,000 years, he had indeed done so, and it had always been very successful, but the losses this time were too great. One of the two successors of the Lang clan with boundless prospects was dead, and the other was almost crippled even if he was not dead. How was he going to explain this to the clan? His eyes were spitting fire, and he said harshly, "You all deserve to die." Ling Han shook his head, and said, "You all deserve to die." The elder tossed the young man onto the ground. The latter was already crippled, so there was no meaning in bringing him back to the clan. Now, the focus was on revenge. He had no more worries now. With his battle prowess as a 4-star genius, even if he could not kill this brat, could it be that this woman would be equally difficult to kill? Ling Han stood in front of Shui Yenyu, and smilingly said, "You still need me to protect you." Shui Yenyu was very speechless, but who asked this guy to be so freakish? She could not treat him as a shattering void tier cultivator at all. She couldn't help but think that if Ling Han advanced into the mountain river tier, what kind of freak would he be? "I, too, want to know how awesome I will be after I advance into the mountain river tier," Ling Han said with a nod. "You know what I am thinking?" Shui Yenyu asked in surprise. "It's all written on your face." Meanwhile, the elder of the Lang clan roared in fury, "Are you all treating me as if I do not exist?" He brandished his saber and charged over. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "Come, let's work together, just like before." N. Shui Yenyu nodded. Previously, she and Ling Han had worked together to kill a great many demonic beasts that were stronger than them. Peng, peng, peng. They battled fiercely. The elder of the Lang clan was indeed very mighty. After the distance was closed, and he was unable to display the full might of the annihilating dragon star arrow, Ling Han could only use the 7-kill subduing soul technique to slightly affect him, but the effects were not obvious. The elder had cultivated for several tens of thousands of years, and his spirit was very stable, and extremely difficult to shake. Meanwhile, he targeted Shui Yenyu, and used his stronger abilities to tangle with Shui Yenyu so that even if Ling Han pulled away, he would not dare to use the annihilating dragon star arrow. The possibility of him accidentally hitting Shui Yenyu was very high. Under the elder's high pressure, Shui Yenyu immediately looked strained. Her battle prowess was only in the late stage of the low extreme, but the elder was equivalent to the peak stage of the medium extreme. This gap was not just a little big. The difference of a sub-minor level in the immortal level could not be tolerated, what more a gap of more than a minor level. In a mere 100 moves, Shui Yenyu was injured. Now, it was a light injury, but it would very soon become a heavy injury, and ultimately lead to her death. If the elder still had any dirty thoughts before, then there was only one thought in his mind now, and that was to kill Shui Yenyu. At least he would have avenged half of his hatred. Ling Han frowned, and finally made a decision. He could not bear to watch Shui Yenyu die in battle. 7-kill subduing soul technique. Under the mental attack, the elder became slightly sluggish. This could only temporarily alleviate Shui Yenyu's crisis, and if it was not so, how could she have withstood 100 moves from the elder? Ling Han wrapped his divine sense around the elder, and directly drew him into the Black Tower. Shui Yenyu was just about to strike out with her sword, but suddenly discovered that there was no target to attack. She couldn't help but gape in shock, and exclaim, where is he? Could it be that this elder could teleport? Chapter 953. Shui Yenyu didn't dare to let down her guard. An enemy that could teleport was too terrifying. Be careful, she warned Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but laugh, and said, be careful of what? That old man. Shui Yenyu was a little driven mad. Didn't you see a living person suddenly disappear? Oh, him. Ling Han scratched his head, and then spread his hands. He probably won't appear again. You. Shui Yenyu suddenly realized. You put him into your spatial god tool. You finally come to your senses. Ling Han sighed. Shui Yenyu shook her head, and said, no, spatial god tools only have the function of storing. If others don't want to enter, can you force them? With that old man's strength, you definitely can't force him to enter. Moreover, it's been so long, he should have fought his way out. My spatial god tool is a little different. Even if a great elite of the heavenly body tier enters, whether they stand or kneel depends on my mood, Ling Han said with a smile. Shui Yenyu looked at Ling Han in shock. This was too shocking. In other words, even if Empress Luan Xing entered that spatial god tool, her life and death was in Ling Han's control. Hiss, did this guy really come from a small world? What? Stunned by my handsomeness? Ling Han said with a smile. Shui Yenyu's beautiful eyes turned, and she suddenly said, then when we encountered so many demonic beasts before, you could actually easily put them into your spatial god tool, right? This. Ling Han paused. It wasn't a good thing for this woman to be too smart. Shui Yenyu was instantly annoyed. I was almost severely wounded many times. You didn't believe me, so you didn't use your spatial god tool. Ling Han laughed and said, well, I still believe you. Otherwise, I could very well watch you be killed by that old man, right? Sophistry, you just don't believe me anyway. Shui Yenyu was still dissatisfied. Ling Han shrugged, and said with a smile, senior sister, aren't you too into the role? We're only pretending to be lovers, and we didn't say we're going to have a heart-to-heart or anything. Shui Yenyu's pretty face paled, and she bit her lip tightly. She swung her sword and slashed at the vines in front of her. Is that a little too much? Ling Han thought in his heart. However, he and this senior sister Shui were indeed only pretending to be a couple. Other than that, they did not have any deep relationship. For a secret as big as a spatial artifact, how could he easily reveal it? If it had been a decisive and ruthless person like the Rain Emperor, he might have even silenced Shui Yenyu to keep the secret. He had already been soft-hearted when he made a move to save her, so why did it seem like he was the one who had done something wrong now? I really don't understand women. Ling Han first dealt with the corpses of the two youths from the Lang clan, and then walked over to help Shui Yenyu slash the vines. Stay away from me. Shui Yenyu said with a cold expression. This time, Ling Han didn't listen to him. Instead, he continued to hack away without saying a word. Shameless. Shui Yenyu spat, but her expression was slightly better. Ling Han heaved a sigh of relief. The sky was clear after the rain. After another while, more people came from behind, but this time, they were from the Chaotic Star's majestic empire, and were acquainted with Shui Yenyu. Everyone moved together, and the speed at which they advanced instantly became much faster. More and more people came from behind, and with more people, they actually couldn't fight, because no one had absolute confidence that they could kill the other. If they rashly started a battle, it was possible that both sides would be wounded. Moreover, everyone had come here for the mountain river stones. If they wanted to fight, they could do so on the battlefield. The small-scale battles between the three great majestic empires had never stopped. When the number of people reached over 100, this was an invincible force. They swept through everything in their way, and the demonic tree could only uproot itself and flee, not daring to fight at all. From this point of view, a brainless tree was instead smarter than a demonic beast, which made people click their tongues in wonder. After exiting the gorge, this alliance was immediately declared broken. Everyone used their movement techniques, and went their own ways. No one had developed any camaraderie in battle. It was too dangerous to team up with people who were unrelated to them. To say nothing of passers-by, even a member of a clan might not be able to completely trust them with his back. In fact, Ling Han and Shui Yenyu were already different. They were obviously fake lovers, yet they had walked together for such a long time, and had developed a kind of tacit understanding between them. Since he had already let Shui Yenyu know a little bit of the Black Tower's ability, Ling Han didn't hold back anymore. When he encountered mountain river tier demonic beasts, he directly attacked, first knocking them unconscious, and then drawing them into the Black Tower. It was a piece of cake. However, this was only limited to the low extreme. Once he encountered those in the medium extreme, even Ling Han would be helpless, and could only retreat in defeat. Even so, their harvest was still astonishing. In a short 2 days, they had killed over 100 demonic beasts, so much so that Shui Yenyu almost couldn't believe her own eyes. Putting aside the mountain river stones, just the spiritual meat was already very valuable. Moreover, they finally obtained a mountain river stone. This was a stone that was completely dark green in color. It was slightly transparent, and there was a hint of coolness in his hand. It was indeed different, and could be distinguished with a single glance. Shui Yenyu tossed the mountain river stone to Ling Han, and said, "Hurry up and refine it. Once you condense it into a mountain river, you will truly have the ability to pass through this place." Ling Han nodded. He didn't need to advance too far in the mountain river tier. The most important thing now was to condense his mountain river, and become an immortal level elite. Unfortunately, this mountain river stone didn't have any special attributes. "Stop!" A shout came from ahead, and 2 groups of people rushed over from the side. The group running in front was a group of 3, and behind them was a group of 7. Obviously, one group was fleeing, and the other was chasing. "Leave behind the mountain river stone, and we can spare your lives," the group of 7 called out. The 3 people in front turned a deaf ear. This was really a joke. They had come here for the mountain river stone, so they naturally wouldn't easily compromise. They gritted their teeth, and each of them drew out a pair of wings and pressed them on their backs. They actually spread out a pair of giant wings that were as long as 9 meters. The other 2 grabbed onto this person's thighs, and as the giant wings spread out, they instantly soared into the sky. Mountain river tier cultivators didn't have the ability to fly in the immortal realm, unless they were of an extremely special race that had wings. Otherwise, they could only rely on flight god tools. When the 7 people in the back saw this, they all stopped in dejection. This was naturally out of their control. In truth, the group of 3 in front hadn't planned to use this treasure in the first place. It was completely because they were afraid that they would be caught in a pincer attack after arriving at Ling Han and Shui Yenyu, so they reluctantly used this treasure. This was something that could only be used once, and it was really painful. The eyes of the group of 7 swept over Ling Han and Shui Yenyu, and they all smiled coldly. "So the mountain river stone is with you guys, hand it over quickly. We only obtained this after much effort, and it was stolen by those 3 just now. The 2 of you had better hand it over. This is not something that belongs to you." The 7 people said one after another. Ling Han and Shui Yenyu exchanged a look, and only felt that these 7 people were really shameless. Weren't they lying right in front of them? Chapter 954. Ling Han chuckled, and said, "What if we don't hand it over?" He didn't want to argue with them about who the mountain stone and river belonged to at all. This was an obvious matter, they wanted to defame them. "No." The 7 sneered. Was there a need to say it? "This woman is really pretty, it'd be a pity to kill her." "Hee, then let's have some fun first before killing her." "Too bad, we can't bring her out of the mystery realm, or we'd really be reluctant." They stared at Shui Yenyu, not hiding the lust in their eyes. In their eyes, 7 mountain river tier cultivators against 1 mountain river tier cultivator and 1 shattering void tier cultivator was naturally a sure win, without any suspense. Though they let the 3 escape, didn't they still have a mountain river stone, and a bone-chilling beauty? They'd made a profit. The more they thought, the more Shui Yenyu's heart fluttered, and she became impatient, wanting nothing more than to immediately charge forward. Hey, keep your saliva. This is my wife, though only temporarily," Ling Han said with a smile, and leaped out, taking the initiative to attack. "You're courting death." One of them sneered, and casually swatted at Ling Han. The other 6 paid no attention at all. In their eyes, this was naturally a matter of killing with a single strike. They all stared at Shui Yenyu. This beauty really made their hearts flutter more and more. 7 Kill Subduing Soul Technique, Withdraw. Ling Han was becoming more and more familiar with these 2 moves, and instantly finished the battle. The remaining 6 looked shocked now. Right before their eyes, their companion had strangely disappeared. Did they see a ghost? What trick did you use? Where did you take Tuhi? They asked sharply. Is there a need to ask? Ling Han smirked coldly. Daring to plot against my wife, naturally I'll kill without mercy. Shui Yenyu's pretty face blushed, but she found that her resistance to the term wife was getting weaker and weaker, and she actually wasn't that angry. Kill. The 6 attacked at the same time. Though Ling Han's trick was very strange, they believed in their own strength more. How could 6 Mountain River tier cultivators not be able to deal with a shattering void tier cultivator? Peng, peng, peng. Ling Han was instantly hit. He was naturally no match for a cultivator in the Mountain River tier, and after a round of attacks, he was sent flying. But when he landed, he was unscathed. The 6 of them opened their mouths wide, unable to accept it no matter what. Ling Han stretched his muscles and said, not bad, not bad. Although my strength is still a bit lacking, I can still feel it. The 6 of them almost exploded in anger. Did he think that they were massaging his back? But how could this person's defense be so tyrannical? It had reached a terrifying level. Ling Han retaliated with another 7 Kill Subduing Soul Technique, but this time, a bolt of lightning flashed on his target's forehead, blocking his spiritual attack. Secret Spirit Technique. That person's eyes immediately lit up. I understand now. You used a secret spirit technique to confuse Tuhi's mind, and then used some other method to make him disappear. Ha, don't you know that I cultivate a secret technique that makes my divine soul incomparably stable? Could it be a spatial divine item? Someone else asked. That's right, it must be a spatial divine item. Otherwise, it would be impossible to make a living person disappear into thin air. None of the 6 of them were idiots. They spoke one after another, and almost recovered the truth of the matter. Their gazes all became fiery. According to legends, spatial divine items could only be forged by great elites of the Genesis tier, because the interior of a divine item could allow people to survive, and could be said to form a world of its own. Naturally, only great elites of the Genesis tier had the ability to do so. The value of this was who knew how many times higher than Mountain River stones. Furthermore, there was also a secret spirit technique. Fuck, this brat was a treasure. The gazes of the 6 of them burned, and their gazes on Ling Han were even more fiery than when they had been on Shui Yenyu previously. Hey, I don't have that taste, you guys don't have to look at me like this. Don't you guys just happen to have 6 people? It just happens to make 3 pairs, so I won't keep you company, Ling Han said with a smile. Everyone, guard your divine sense tightly. This brat knows a spiritual attack, don't let him take advantage of it. The 6 of them nodded, and began to attack Ling Han at the same time. Ling Han didn't even have the chance to use the 7 Kill Subduing Soul technique. Under the frenzied attacks of 6 great elites of the Mountain River tier, he was like a scarecrow dancing around. The only good news was that his physique was too strong, and this couldn't injure him in the slightest. Shui Yenyu came up to help, but with her strength, she could only barely hold back 2 people. There were still 4 people who were madly attacking Ling Han. Ling Han finally found an opportunity to use the 7 Kill Subduing Soul technique, but before he could draw that person into the Black Tower, he was already sent flying by the other 3 people, and missed the chance to kill him. The battle was at a stalemate. Overall, both Ling Han and Shui Yenyu were at a disadvantage, especially Shui Yenyu. She didn't have a physique as strong as Ling Han's, and under the combined attacks of 2 powerful enemies, she was in imminent danger. Let's go. Ling Han took the opportunity of being sent flying to land at Shui Yenyu's side, and said to her in a low voice, I'll hold them back, and we'll meet at the Crimson Lake later. Shui Yenyu hesitated slightly, and then said, all right. Ling Han was invincible here, and she would instead be a burden to Ling Han. Thus, she made a prompt decision, and didn't argue, nor did she waste words. She immediately leaped up, and ran diagonally. Don't try to escape. The two people who were responsible for restraining Shui Yenyu immediately shouted. However, Ling Han had unleashed 2 spiritual attacks consecutively, and their figures instantly faltered. Meanwhile, the other 4 people had also caught up, and did not give Ling Han another chance to make a move. Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, come, I'll play with you guys. Sure, how, Dong Ming, you guys go after that woman. 2 of the 6 people split off to chase after Shui Yenyu, but Ling Han unleashed the annihilating dragon star destruction arrow. Shwa, shwa, 2 arrows shot out, and forcibly stopped the 2 people. And it was in this one instant that Shui Yenyu had already fled until she was only a small black dot. They were all in the low extreme of the mountain river tier, so it was definitely impossible to catch up. The 6 people were all furious, and surrounded Ling Han, all of them seething with killing intent. A hero saving a damsel in distress, how touching. However, how are you going to protect yourself? Your physique is indeed tough, but we have all the time we have. We can slowly refine you after capturing you. You have to know that even the best godly metal can be forged into weapons, so who do you think you are? We will refine you to death, then extract your memories, and obtain everything. The 6 people spoke one after another. They were extremely displeased that one of them had escaped, but thankfully, Shui Yenyu was only a dessert, and Ling Han was the true treasure. Ling Han smiled calmly, and said, then you guys find me first, heaven and earth great shift. Xiao, he disappeared. The 6 people were dumbfounded, and then went mad. Where is he? Even if he hid in a spatial god tool, where is the spatial god tool? Could it really be some heaven and earth great shift? Chapter 955. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Ling Han completed the accumulation of his cultivation level, and comprehended under the reincarnation tree. This was far too helpful. He could break through to the medium extreme now, but he didn't start immediately. Instead, he made a trip to the auction house. Jin Ming had purchased a large amount of godly metal for him, and after consuming all of it, Ling Han had gone from a wealthy man to a slightly wealthy one. He had spent close to 400 million true origin stones, and only a little over 300,000 was left. However, the level 5 godly metal that he had purchased was more or less enough for the divine demon sword to level up. He had the divine demon sword continuously devour godly metal, and after half a day, there was only less than 5 kilograms of level 5 godly metal left. Moreover, the divine demon sword had also reached a satiated state. It only needed to eat another small piece of godly metal, and it would be able to complete the qualitative change from level 5 to level 6. Ling Han wasn't in a hurry to take this step. Instead, he began to break through to the medium extreme on his own. He wanted to let the divine demon sword complete another qualitative change when he endured the heavenly tribulation. He wanted to experience the heavenly tribulation together, and from there, the might of the divine demon sword would become even stronger. He comprehended under the reincarnation tree, and time passed like a dog. A month passed, yet Ling Han had already comprehended for 30 years. His figure flashed, and he left the Black Tower. Hung, long, long. Dark clouds immediately intertwined in the sky, forming rolling thunderclouds. Strangely, there wasn't just blazing white lightning in the thunderclouds this time. There was actually black lightning as well. This was the two-realm battlefield, which was both the immortal realm and the netherworld. Thus, this heavenly tribulation also possessed the characteristics of both realms. Ling Han had long since left Wolf Fang City. In any case, he was comprehending in the Black Tower, so he didn't have to worry about being disturbed at all. Moreover, After he comprehended something, he could directly run out and endure the heavenly tribulation. He didn't have to worry about bringing disaster to others. Amid the rolling thunderclouds, terrifying lightning intertwined, forming into bolts of lightning that were thicker than mountains. They suddenly struck down at him. The heaven and earth were furious. Cultivation was to seize the good fortune of the heavens, and was not tolerated by heaven and earth. Thus, a great tribulation had to descend, and this power would return to heaven and earth. Ling Han didn't care at all. His physique was much stronger than his cultivation level, so he would be fine no matter how the heavenly tribulation struck him. However, in order to temper his physique, he still took the initiative to shatter his godly bones, and advanced toward a higher level under the heavenly tribulation. The divine demon sword also swallowed the last piece of godly metal, and completed a qualitative leap. Similarly, it was being tempered under the heavenly tribulation. Wisps of metal slag were expelled from the blade of the sword, and the sword itself became even brighter. It was like a pool of autumn water, exuding a supreme divine might. This was a divine sword. Meanwhile, Ling Han was comprehending the power of the heavenly tribulation. Now that its might had increased to a whole new level, it allowed him to comprehend more regulations of heaven and earth, that circulation of great freedom. Half a day later, the heavenly tribulation dissipated. Ling Han still wanted to continue. He still hadn't comprehended enough. It was fine. If he went to freeload on the heavenly tribulations in the future, they would all be at this level. Therefore, there was no need to rush. If one time was not enough, he could try twice. If 2 times was not enough, he could try thrice. The divine demon sword trembled lightly, and spun around Ling Han's body, exuding a frightening cold light. Ling Han himself possessed supreme defense and recovery ability, and the divine demon sword, on the other hand, had reached the pinnacle in terms of offense. If he used the divine demon sword to attack him, would his defense be stronger, or would the divine demon sword be sharper? Ling Han suddenly had a strange thought. Then, he felt that he was purely seeking abuse. What was there to think about? Good sword. A praise traveled over from afar. He saw that it was a white-robed man, his face covered with a white cloth, and even his hair was wrapped in it. He didn't reveal his eyes, nostrils, or mouth at all, appearing incredibly strange. Moreover, his white robes were also very loose, so it was impossible to determine whether he was a man or a woman from his figure. In fact, his voice was also very androgynous. It could be said that he was a slightly feminine man, but it could also be said that he was a relatively heroic woman. He stood on one leg, and there was a zither placed on his arched thigh. With a light pluck of his left hand, the sound of flowing water instantly rang out. It was like a spiritual spring flowing over a stream, and was very pleasing to the ears. This person is so strong. Ling Han thought. He couldn't tell the exact cultivation level of this person, but he had a feeling that the other was very, very strong. The two-realm prodigy gathering was getting closer and closer, and prodigies from various places were also appearing like bamboo shoots after a spring rain. Ling Han smiled slightly, and said, "It is indeed a good sword. Can you part with it?" The white-robed man asked. "I'm sorry, it's not for sale." Ling Han shook his head. The white-robed man plucked the strings. Weng, 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 the sound of the zither rang out. He paused, and said, "Then let's make a bet. If I win, you will sell this sword to me." Ling Han laughed loudly, and said, "Not interested." "Then how about a spar?" The white-robed man asked again. It was clear that he didn't want to give up. Ling Han was also filled with fighting spirit. He put away the divine demon sword, and said, "All right." The white-robed man couldn't help but become anxious, and asked, "Why did you put away your sword?" "I will naturally use it when I need to," Ling Han said with a smile. "Sir, how should I address you?" The white-robed man hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Faceless." Faceless? If covering one's face was called faceless, then shouldn't he be called bodiless? I am Ling Han. Ling Han clenched his fists. His physical defense was invincible among those at the same cultivation level. Thus, he was also very fond of using his fists. The feeling of directly using his bare fists to beat his opponent to the ground was very satisfying. Take this. Faceless said as he plucked the strings of his zither. Wang! A sound wave actually materialized, forming a sharp sword that slashed toward Ling Han. Ling Han couldn't help but look astonished. This attack was incredibly powerful, and it actually made him feel an irresistible pressure. This wasn't because of his opponent's aura, but rather because this attack was truly terrifying. His opponent was at the consummate level of the Sun-Moon tier. No, no, no. Ling Han hurriedly used the star-plucking step to dodge. Even consummate-level cultivators weren't this powerful. It wasn't like he hadn't battled this kind of opponent before. Pinnacle level. That's right, his opponent should have reached the pinnacle level of the Sun-Moon tier. That was why he possessed such terrifying power. One had to realize that although Ling Han had advanced to the medium extreme, his actual battle prowess was only at the late stage of the high extreme. He hadn't even come close to the consummate level. Yet, his opponent had reached the pinnacle level. Regardless of whether it was cultivation level or battle prowess, just how vast was the gap between them? It was practically a gap between heaven and earth. Oh, that's right, you're only at the early stage of the medium extreme. Faceless nodded as if he had just realized this. I'll suppress my cultivation level and battle you at the same cultivation level. True enough, his aura immediately dropped. However, it only dropped to the middle stage of the medium extreme. That was because he could only seal a complete sun and moon, and couldn't seal half of one. Thus, he was either at the middle stage of the medium extreme or the peak stage of the low extreme. Although Faceless was a fair person, being fair wouldn't mean that he would be at a disadvantage. Thus, in the choice of approaching Ling Han's cultivation level, he naturally chose to be a sub-minor level stronger than Ling Han. There was no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. This was already an extremely ideal result. Wang! Faceless plucked the strings of his zither again. Wang! Another sound wave took form and slashed toward Ling Han. This time, Ling Han didn't dodge. Instead, he clenched his fist and met the attack head-on. Pang! The sword formed by the sound wave was forcefully shattered by Ling Han. He roared and charged toward Faceless. Chapter 956. Ling Han channeled the indestructible Heaven's Scroll, and reforged his godly bones. One break and one rebuild, it was a tempering, a qualitative improvement. However, this process was really unpleasant. Ling Han clearly had indestructible true fluid in his body, but he couldn't use it now, because he had to let his godly bones be tempered by the heavenly tribulation, washing away the impurities in them, so that his physique could advance towards level 2 godly metal. This made him wish he was dead. Only when one reached his level could the divine sense be stable, and temporarily exist apart from the physical body. Otherwise, if it was an ordinary person, their body would collapse, and they would naturally die completely. Not good, this brat didn't pass the heavenly tribulation, and died, the 6 people on the side all exclaimed, their faces filled with disappointment. They naturally couldn't be sad about Ling Han's death, but this brat died, so they couldn't extract his soul, and obtain the secrets of the secret technique on Ling Han's body. But now that the heavenly tribulation was wreaking havoc, who dared to make a move against Ling Han? Interfering with others' tribulation would be treated equally by the heavenly tribulation. No, if this brat died, why hasn't the heavenly tribulation dissipated? Someone immediately called out. That's right, if a person died, the heavenly tribulation would immediately disappear, so why is it still continuing? This brat is still not dead. Hee, it's best if he's not dead. Now that this guy is so heavily injured, and his physique has been torn apart by the heavenly tribulation, it'll be easy for us to kill him later. They immediately became excited again. They had inexplicable confidence in the heavenly tribulation because this was a threat that any great elite would be extremely afraid of. Even Genesis-tier saints didn't dare to pat their chest and say that they could safely pass the heavenly tribulation. Who could pass the heavenly tribulation without losing half their life? 4 hours later, Ling Han's godly bones finally completed a qualitative change. He channeled the indestructible heaven's scroll to heal the godly bones. Now, these godly bones were comparable to level 2 godly metal, and were qualitatively improved to another level. After the bones were reconstructed, his flesh immediately regrew, and he was rapidly recovering. He had the spare time to actively absorb the power of lightning, and began to temper his body of lightning again. But this time, he discovered that his ability to absorb lightning was limited, not because his physique was insufficient, but because the thunderclap 9th heaven seemed to be insufficient in transforming the power of lightning. This was a divine ability, but in the God realm, it might just be an ordinary technique. He had just entered the God realm, but he already seemed powerless. Ling Han couldn't help but shake his head. When he thought about it again, the 3 styles of black origin originated from the Heaven's Sword Palace, and the strongest member of the Heaven's Sword Palace was only at the Sun-Moon tier. Then, the might of this sword technique would soon reach a bottleneck, and would no longer be able to improve further. This was an awkward situation for a spell that wasn't created by him. In this regard, it was not only the Rain Emperor who had created his own Son of Heaven fist technique. As long as his cultivation level increased, he would naturally be able to increase the might of his fist technique and continue to become stronger. Of course, this process wasn't simple. Golden characters flipped through Ling Han's mind. Some of them turned into words, while others turned into images. Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow. No, it wasn't the Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow that he had learned, but a new archery technique. This was the real Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow. 1 arrow could annihilate a dragon and 1 could shatter a star. Only those who had entered the divine state were qualified to learn this archery technique. There was only one technique, because this wasn't a fixed technique. Rather, it was a technique that channeled power. Infusing all the power in the user's body into the arrow, it would slay any god that stood in its way. It wasn't obvious before because Ling Han hadn't advanced into the divine state at all. A smile appeared on Ling Han's face. The heavenly tribulation was dissipating, and he was about to become a true immortal. Forming mountains and rivers was only a sign of the mountain river tier, but whether he succeeded or not depended on whether he could survive the heavenly tribulation. When the last bolt of lightning struck, the dark clouds in the sky also began to rapidly dissipate, and the sky returned to a crimson color. Shio, shio, shio. The 6 people beside him immediately leaped over and surrounded him. You're quite bold, actually daring to refine our mountain river stones. However, you've been severely wounded in the heavenly tribulation. Though you forcefully healed yourself with spirit medicines, it must have left behind a great deal of damage. Hurry up and surrender, and we'll grant you a quick death. The 6 people all smirked coldly, their expressions proud. Though they were all in the low extreme of the mountain river tier, 2 of them had reached the peak stage of the low extreme, 3 were in the late stage, and 1 was in the middle stage. Moreover, the 2 that had reached the peak stage were 1-star geniuses, and their battle prowess was comparable to the early stage of the medium extreme. Wouldn't it be a piece of cake for them to deal with a newbie that had just advanced into the mountain river tier? Ling Han broke into a grin, and said, I'm really looking forward to it. After being a human punching bag for so long, it's finally my turn to retaliate. Come, the 6 of you, do you plan to come at me one by one, or all at once? What arrogance! Do you think you've reached the heavens in a single step just because you've advanced into the immortal level? Sure, how, you go and deal with him. All right. A young man moved, and very casually pressed down on Ling Han. The image of a mountain and a river appeared behind him. There were divine patterns glowing on the mountain, and the same was true for the river. He was in the late stage of the low extreme, so the river was obviously much smaller. Manifesting the mountains and rivers meant that this attack of his seemed casual, but he was actually serious. Otherwise, he could completely conceal the mountains and rivers, just like when he hadn't moved. It was obvious that he was looking down on Ling Han, but he wasn't careless in his heart. After all, they were all in the low extreme, so he naturally didn't dare to be too careless. Ling Han wasn't sure about his own power either, and similarly didn't dare to be careless. With a thought, his own mountains and rivers also manifested. Pooh! The remaining 5 people spluttered in laughter at the same time. This mountains and rivers were really fuck you small. They were too tall. Although mountains and rivers would grow as one's cultivation level increased, such a low starting point definitely didn't have any future. Even Shi Hao, who had attacked, revealed a sliver of a smile. He had really been too careful. Ling Han had only just broken through, and could already display a bit of the might of the mountain river tier. Pang! Their hands finally collided. There was only a slight pause, and then they saw that it was as if Shi Hao's hand was made of noodles, actually beginning to move. Pa! A broken bone directly pierced out from his shoulder. The white bone was sparkling and translucent, and was stained with a sliver of blood. However, it was like agate, condensing into a bead that didn't melt. All of a sudden, the surroundings became frighteningly quiet. Were their eyes playing tricks on them? The remaining 5 people blinked vigorously. It should have been Shi Hao who had broken Ling Han's bone with a single punch, right? But no matter how they blinked, the scene in front of them didn't change in the slightest. They sucked in a cold breath, expressions of shock on their faces. What kind of power, what kind of physique, to be able to break the bones of Shi Hao's arm with a single punch? Ah! Shi Hao was also stunned. Only now did he feel the intense pain, and he couldn't help but cry out in pain. His figure retreated repeatedly, an expression of extreme fear on his face. This power definitely isn't something that someone in the low extreme can possess. Early stage of the medium extreme, or perhaps even higher. Chapter 957. Power reaching the medium extreme and battle prowess reaching the medium extreme were 2 completely different concepts. Power reaching the medium extreme and battle prowess reaching the medium extreme were 2 completely different concepts. For example, the 2 guys in the peak stage of the low extreme, Yu Lihui and Wu Fu, were both 1-star geniuses, and their battle prowess was comparable to the early stage of the medium extreme, but in terms of power, they were still at the peak stage of the low extreme. Power was only a part of battle prowess, but it was also the most important part, and if power alone had reached the early stage of the medium extreme, then what level of peak battle prowess could reach? The 6 of them were naturally afraid. This guy had only just advanced into the mountain river tier. 4-star genius, even 5-star genius. Ling Han showed a satisfied smile. He really lived up to his expectations. He had only broken through after cultivating to 20 stars of shattering void tier, and now his power alone had reached the level of a 4-star genius. Then, with the Eye of Truth, 3 styles of black origin, and other mystical powers and secret techniques. Come, 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 let's fight to our heart's content. He appeared very excited, and couldn't wait to test his own strength. You think we're afraid of you? The 6 of them roared. Even the injured Shi Hao hurriedly swallowed a few alchemical pills to forcibly reset his broken bones, and then solidified them with origin power. For a short while, he could still fight at full strength. However, they were definitely not brave people, and all drew out their weapons. They were either sabers or swords, appearing very orderly. Ling Han laughed loudly, and took the initiative to attack. His current physique was comparable to level 2 godly metal, so did he need to be afraid of anyone in this mystery realm? Peng, 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 he was like a lion charging into a pack of wolves. The 6 actually didn't have the courage to face him head-on, and all circled to the side, and then launched attacks at him. As the sabers and swords moved, divine patterns actually flickered on one of the swords. That wasn't as simple as being forged from godly metal, it was also branded with divine patterns, and possessed additional power. God tool. This was the first time Ling Han had seen a god tool in the immortal realm, and he couldn't help but feel a sense of novelty. The additional power this god tool possessed was flames, and the tip of the sword occasionally slashed out a wave of flames. It was very thin, but very powerful. Even if Ling Han deliberately took a hit, his hand would still emit green smoke, and he felt a sliver of heat. It was only heat, and even his previous physique of level 1 godly metal might not be able to injure it, what more now? But what if this artifact was of a higher grade? Ling Han nodded to himself. Even though his physique was strong, he couldn't be too careless. After all, his cultivation level was still low. He tried to summon the Heaven Transformation Bowl to see if he could collect this divine artifact. When, the divine patterns on the Heaven Transformation Bowl also lit up, and it automatically rose into the air to confront the god weapon. They were equally matched. Ling Han couldn't help but sigh. The grade of the Heaven Transformation Bowl was only a so-so. Since he couldn't collect this divine weapon, it meant that it was only a first-tier divine weapon. That's right, if it was too strong, how could he use it? In the minor world, Ling Han's wealth was extremely abundant. The Heaven Transformation Bowl, the Vial of Curses, any one of them would cause anyone's eyes to go red with envy. But now, they were only level 1 divine artifacts. In the immortal realm, they could be considered the weakest. Ling Han used the 3 styles of black origin, the thunderclap 9th heaven, and other secret techniques one by one, analyzing his battle prowess. If he didn't use any martial arts techniques, and only relied on his power to attack, his battle prowess would be at the level of 4 stars. But if he used the thunderclap 9th heaven, the 3 styles of black origin, or any other secret technique, his battle prowess would still be at the level of 4 stars, unable to cross over to the level of 5 stars. Only after he superimposed a few mystical powers did his battle prowess finally rush up to 5 stars. This also showed how difficult it was to surpass one's cultivation level in the immortal level to battle. At the same time, Ling Han also rejoiced that he persisted in advancing his power to 20 stars of Shattering Void tier. Otherwise, his current battle prowess would at most be 4 stars. However, I haven't tried the ultimate arrow of the Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow, Ling Han thought. He didn't plan to try it. This arrow would shoot out all the power in his body, and he would probably need a very long time to recover after shooting it. Moreover, these 6 people were too weak, and couldn't test the ultimate might of this arrow technique. Then let's try the Vial of Curses. Ling Han wounded the 6 people separately, and poured their blood into the Vial of Curses. In the end, he cursed one to death, and died without any symptoms. 2 had their hands and feet mangled, and the remaining 3 only felt dizzy, and weren't really affected. Sure enough, like the Heaven Transformation Bowl, it was also a god tool, and also a low-grade god tool. I won't waste any more time with you guys. Ling Han increased his battle prowess, and killed 2 people whose hands and feet were mangled. After killing the 3rd person with a strike of his sword, there were only 2 opponents at the peak stage of the low extreme left. These 2 people looked at each other, and could see the incomparable fear on each other's faces. They both turned around and fled in different directions. Hey! Ling Han shot out a 7-kill subduing soul technique, and the expression of the person on the left immediately froze. After he caught up to him, an earth-overturning seal landed on his head, instantly shattering his mind. But it was in this instant that the person on the right had already fled 300 meters away. Ling Han drew his bow, and activated the Annihilating Dragon Star Arrow. Shio, an arrow shot out. He didn't use the ultimate arrow, but this arrow was still extremely terrifying, and the person who was fleeing didn't have the courage to turn back to fight. He only knew how to run for his life, so how could he dodge? Pooh! The arrow entered his body, and directly pierced through his heart. The person turned around in a daze, and wanted to say something, but peng, his entire chest suddenly exploded, and he died instantly. Impressive. Ling Han walked over and picked up the arrow. This was the arrow that he had seized from the assassin of the Dark Night Hall. Previously, he hadn't discovered that there were divine patterns on the arrow, which greatly increased the arrow's destructive power. Thankfully, his physique was strong enough. Otherwise, if he had been pierced through by the arrow, he wouldn't have the chance to stand here now. This is a lesson. Don't be careless because you think your physique is strong. Otherwise, you'll be digging your own grave, Ling Han said to himself. He cleaned the spatial spirit tools of the 6 people, and there were actually a few hundred true origin stones left. This was a small fortune. And what made him happy was that there were still 3 pieces of spiritual meat, and finally, there were 2 mountain river stones. No wonder so many people like to kill people and steal their treasures. Indeed, this is really a sudden windfall. However, even if you can kill people, others can also kill you. It's not good to take revenge again and again. I won't take the initiative to rob others, but if anyone is blind enough to target me, then he. Moreover, that divine sword was quite suitable for him. However, he didn't dare to use it here. Otherwise, it would mean that the group of 7 from before had died at his hands. Although everyone knew that killing was inevitable in the mystery realm, they couldn't be so high profile. I'll use it when I get back. Ling Han carefully compared the direction. There was no sun or moon here. North, south, east, and west were actually relative, and had been artificially drawn out during countless years of exploration. He had previously memorized Shui Yenyu's map. Thus, after comparing the terrain, he headed in the direction of the Crimson Lake. Woo, woo, woo. Not long after, he heard a faint sobbing sound from the dense forest beside him. It sounded like the sobbing of ghosts. Chapter 958. Ling Han's heart instantly skipped a beat. In the mystery realm, all sorts of strange and unimaginable monsters could appear. It wouldn't be strange for a ghost to appear. But curiosity killed the cat. He was both bold and curious, and he couldn't help but sneak toward that dense forest. His figure was light and agile, and he even drew his divine sword carefully. He arrived at the edge of the forest, and gently pushed aside the grass. He saw a white-clothed person crying in front of him, and shockingly, she actually didn't have a head. What a ghost! Ling Han tightened his grip on the hilt of his sword, and his whole body felt numb. It wasn't fear, but excitement. He hadn't slain a ghost before. Xiao, he leaped up and slashed with his sword. That white-clothed person suddenly raised her head. Who said she didn't have a head? It was just that she had buried her head too low just now, and her arms were wrapped around her neck, so she could only reach the white cloth, and couldn't even reach her neck. That was why he had mistakenly thought she didn't have a head. The 9th king, Hu Feiyun. This young girl's face was full of tears, and there was a confused expression on her face. Only when the sword flashed in front of her eyes did she suddenly open her small mouth, and an expression of shock appeared on her face. However, she didn't even instinctively dodge or parry. It was already too late for Ling Han to withdraw his sword, and he immediately pushed it with force. The tip of the sword instantly brushed past Hu Feiyun's left side, and a gust of wind swept past, causing her clothes to flutter. Poo, piu, piu, piu. As the sword swept past, at least 100 large trees behind Hu Feiyun were all chopped in half, and fell with a rumble. Hu Feiyun was dazed for a while, and then suddenly jumped up. She finally reacted. She wiped away her tears, and sobbed as she said, "Why did you slash me?" Her pretty face was full of grievance. This, Ling Han bared his teeth, and said, "I thought you were a ghost." "I'm not a ghost." Hu Feiyun hurriedly shook her head, but immediately revealed a frightened expression, and asked, "There's a ghost?" She was so frightened that she started to tremble. Ling Han really couldn't imagine that such a young girl could actually sit on the ninth king's position, and make even the left and right ministers and the 7 generals revere her. He chuckled, and said, there shouldn't be. Then it's possible. Hu Feiyun, however, liked to get stuck in a dead end. Even if there are ghosts, there's nothing to be afraid of. Ling Han laughed. As the saying goes, if you don't do anything shameful, you won't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door in the middle of the night. Ah, don't say any more. Hu Feiyun's pretty face had already turned pale with fright. I've put laxatives in the spirit liquid that I gave these big sisters to drink, and they're going to be haunted by ghosts. Wah, wah. Ling Han couldn't help but be speechless. He could only comfort her, it's fine. That's all. It's not enough for ghosts to target you. Do you think all ghosts are so free? How do you know whether a ghost is idle or not? Have you seen a ghost before? Hu Feiyun was trembling in fear, yet a curious expression appeared on her face. Ling Han was a little driven mad, and hurriedly changed the topic. Ninth King, why are you crying here alone? Where are your 3 guards? Hu Feiyun immediately began to cry again when he asked this question. She sobbed, and said, Ting Qin, Yun Rong, and the others are all dead. Wah, they were all eaten by an evil beast in order to protect me. Ling Han was shocked. With the Empress of the Chaotic Star's majestic empire's favor toward the ninth king, the 3 female guards that she had sent out were not only at the peak stage of the low extreme, but also at the level of 3-star or 4-star geniuses through secret techniques. Their battle prowess was comparable to the late stage or even the peak stage of the medium extreme. However, even the 3 of them were no match for it, so how powerful was that evil beast? It had to at least have battle prowess of the high extreme, or even the late stage or peak stage. Otherwise, it would be impossible for the 3 guards to not be able to escape. Even Ling Han could only flee if he saw such a being. If level 2 godly metal was bombarded by battle prowess of the high extreme, there was still a possibility that it could be damaged. Moreover, his divine sense hadn't significantly improved, so the 7-kill subduing soul technique probably wouldn't be of any use. This is their duty. Now that you're fine, they can also rest in peace, Ling Han consoled. Woo, but I'm still very sad, Hu Feiyun said as she wiped away her tears, sobbing. Alright, you won't be pretty if you cry anymore. Ling Han wasn't good at consoling people. Moreover, compared to Hun Yo, Hu Feiyun was more like a child, and Hun Yo was the adult. However, these words hit Hu Feiyun where it hurt. She hurriedly wiped away her tears, and tensed her small face, not allowing her tears to flow out again. She drew out a mirror and looked at herself. An aggrieved expression appeared on her small face, and it was as if she was about to cry again. As expected, I've become uglier. Not ugly. Not ugly. You're very beautiful. Ling Han hurriedly took out some food and handed it over. Come, eat something. If it were Hun Yo, she would definitely be grinning from ear to ear, and forget everything. However, this ninth king wasn't a glutton, and her expression didn't change in the slightest. Then wait here. When it's time, you can naturally go out, Ling Han said. No. Hu Feiyun hurriedly jumped up, and grabbed onto the corner of his shirt. I'm scared, I don't want to be alone. She looked pitiful, as if she were a little girl throwing a tantrum. Ling Han really couldn't imagine that such a person could become a super elite that could command the wind and clouds in the future. However, the previous 8 kings had all advanced into the heavenly body tier 1 after another, so according to convention, she shouldn't be an exception. Fine, you can follow me. Ling Han nodded. He couldn't stand Hu Feiyun's eyes that seemed like they could speak. Thankfully, this woman was delicate and naive. Otherwise, if she was the seductive type, she would definitely be able to charm people to death with those eyes that could speak. Thankfully, he could throw her to Shui Yenyu when they reached the Crimson Lake. Hu Feiyun breathed a sigh of relief, but she still refused to let go of the corner of Ling Han's shirt, as if she was afraid that he would slip away. Ling Han sighed, and brought this bum along as they set out. Thankfully, they weren't far from the Crimson Lake, and it was only about a day's journey. Chi-hu, Chi-hu. They walked for a while, and a rugged mountain path appeared in front of them. Meanwhile, a terrifying beast's roar reverberated from the top of the mountain, as if it was calling out to its dominance. It's that evil beast. Hu Feiyun instantly shrank closer to Ling Han in fear, and said, "Don't go over, you'll be eaten. Can't you say something nicer?" Ling Han pondered for a moment, and then said, "Our goal is only to pass through here, so there's no need to clash with that demonic beast. We can just pass through quietly." Hu Feiyun hurriedly nodded. She was indeed very timid. The mountain rocks here rose and fell, and they served as natural cover. They used the rocks as cover as they passed through this mountain. When they were about to leave, Ling Han saw a strange beast perched high on the mountain peak. It looked like a wolf, but it had a pair of massive black wings. It also had 3 heads, which were gold, silver, and red respectively. It was incredibly strange. Even though they were separated by such a long distance, Ling Han's gaze still caused this demonic beast to react. One of the wolf heads immediately turned over, and an expression of disdain instantly appeared on its face. It didn't move, but the other demonic wolf beside it flew into the air. Its appearance was similar to that of the wolf, but it was much smaller. It only had 2 heads, one silver, and one red. Moreover, the silver head was much smaller, and was only half the size of the red head. The double-headed flying wolf flew toward Ling Han and Hu Feiyun. Behind it were the images of 2 mountains and a river. Chapter 960. With Empress Wan Xing's power at the consummate level of the heavenly body tier, suppressing a mere demonic beast in the high extreme of the mountain river tier was naturally a piece of cake. But the problem was, he didn't know how far away this empress was now. Did she leave a sliver of her consciousness on Hu Feiyun's body, or did she use some kind of secret technique? Ling Han shook his head internally. At least, as far as he knew, there was no such secret technique in the immortal realm. Otherwise, why would the left minister need to find Tang Feng? He could just leave a sliver of his consciousness on his beloved daughter's body and use a secret technique. Wouldn't this be as easy as walking on flat ground? However, he was sure that Empress Wan Xing had definitely made a move just now. Being able to become one of the 3 rulers of the joint peace planet, Empress Wan Xing indeed lived up to her name. She possessed power that ordinary people didn't possess. At this moment, Hu Feiyun turned around to look at him. It was clearly the same face, but her aura was completely different. It was filled with the might of a superior, causing Ling Han's breathing to stop instantly. Cold sweat beaded on his forehead. This definitely wasn't Hu Feiyun, but rather Empress Wan Xing, or rather, it was the body that Empress Wan Xing was controlling. A cold glint flashed in Hu Feiyun's eyes. Instantly, her killing intent solidified, tearing the surrounding space apart. However, she hesitated, and ultimately didn't make a move. In the blink of an eye, that terrifying aura disappeared without a trace. How did this evil beast die? Hu Feiyun suddenly called out, her voice filled with shock and confusion. Ling Han raised his head and saw Hu Feiyun's innocent expression. It was as if she didn't remember what had just happened. Strange. Ling Han suddenly felt that the 9th king's relationship with Empress Wan Xing wasn't as simple as that of a sisterly relationship. Rather, there was a deeper bond between them, and it was more likely that they were hiding some great secret. Thus, Empress Wan Xing had planned to silence him just then, but ultimately didn't do so. Of course, if she had made a move, Ling Han could also hide in the Black Tower. Ling Han, you killed this evil beast. Hu Feiyun looked at Ling Han, her large eyes filled with gratitude. That's great, you've avenged Ting Qin, Yun Rong, and the others. She was so excited that she grabbed one of Ling Han's arms and shook it continuously. The pitiful Ling Han had yet to recover his strength, so he was dizzy from being shaken by her. Calm down, calm down. There's still one more, Ling Han said hurriedly. Hu Feiyun was instantly given a fright, and she hurriedly ran toward the top of the mountain. However, that little wolf demon had seen Hu Feiyun unleash her might before. Moreover, it had lost a head now, so its strength had dropped to the middle stage of the low extreme. When it saw Hu Feiyun looking over, it thought that she was going to attack it. It hurriedly flapped its wings and fled for its life. Hu Feiyun heaved a long sigh of relief, and said, "Fortunately, you killed the big evil beast. Now, even this small evil beast is afraid of you." "He was afraid of you," Ling Han said in his heart, but he didn't argue. He said, "I'll recover my strength first. We'll set off later." Hu Feiyun hurriedly nodded, looking very obedient. Ling Han drew out an alchemical pill and swallowed it. However, he did not have a cultivation technique on the level of mountain river tier, so he could not actively draw out spiritual qi to speed up this process. He could only passively wait for his origin power to recover. On the other hand, stamina was easy to deal with. He would naturally recover after resting for a while. He had miscalculated, and he had not prepared a mountain river tier cultivation technique in advance. He drew out a true origin stone, and almost instinctively absorbed the spiritual qi within it. Although it was not fast enough, it was still better than doing nothing. After a whole 6 hours, he finally completely recovered his origin power. Hu Feiyun naturally would not collect the spiritual meat. How could she do such a bloody thing? Moreover, mountain river stones were rare, but spiritual meat was definitely not rare to her. Ling Han did not hold back, and peeled the spiritual meat of the 3 flying wolves. It was the size of a pinky, and its fragrance was very tempting. "Let's go." The two of them continued on their way, rushing toward the Crimson Lake. After another half a day, a red lake finally appeared in front of them. There was not a single ripple on the surface of the lake, and it seemed like it was made of solidified blood, or like a blood-colored crystal. "Is this the Crimson Lake?" "It would be better to call it the Blood Lake or the Red Crystal Lake," Ling Han complained. He and Hu Feiyun were not the first to arrive. There were many people sitting cross-legged beside the lake, and there were even some people walking toward the center of the lake. In the middle of the lake, there were stones floating on the surface of the water in all 4 directions, forming uneven paths that extended towards the center of the lake. In the center of the 4 paths was a very small island in the middle of the lake. The parts of these stones that were floating above the water's surface were all very neatly shaved, and there was a distance of about 3 meters between each stone. People stepped on a stone, and then leaped toward the stone in front of them. A distance of 3 meters should be a piece of cake for cultivators, yet it seemed to be extremely arduous at this moment. Every person leaped over a stone, and they were panting heavily, sweat beading on their foreheads. Splash! Someone fell into the lake, and instantly released a wail of agony. He desperately swam back to the shore, only to see that his body was already a bloody mess. It was as if the lake water had a powerful corrosive power. That person took medicine and channeled his cultivation technique, but the flesh on his arms and legs still fell off piece by piece, revealing his white bones. In fact, there were even signs of his bones melting. But at least he stopped. That person was also beyond recognition. His face, chest, and abdomen were all filled with bloody holes, and one could clearly see his brain, heart, intestines, and other organs. It was extremely frightening. Ling Han. Shui Yenyu discovered him, and quickly walked over. There was a relieved expression on her face, and she said, "You're finally here." Ling Han nodded, and asked, "What's this for?" "There's a small island in the center of the Crimson Lake, and there are 4 paths that lead to it. Those are the stones that are floating above the water's surface." However, those stones have an astonishing gravitational force, and the further you go, the greater the gravitational force, Shui Yenyu explained. Only now did she notice Hu Feiyun, and she hurriedly bowed, saying, "Greetings, Ninth King." This surprised her slightly. She was actually so excited to see that Ling Han was safe, and she even ignored the Ninth King. Hu Feiyun waved her hand, and said, "Dispense with the formalities." She appeared very carefree. However, Ling Han asked, "Are there mountain river stones on the island in the center of the lake?" "That's right." Shui Yenyu nodded, and said, "Although there might be mountain river stones everywhere in the mystery realm, the Crimson Lake definitely has them. Moreover, they are mountain river stones with special attributes." "Oh. Then what special attributes do the mountain river stones here have?" Ling Han's eyes lit up. "Super gravity," Shui Yenyu said. Ling Han nodded, and said, "Then you have to get a few." Shui Yenyu couldn't help but shake her head, and said, "First of all, it's extremely difficult to reach the center of the lake. Even if you succeed, you can only obtain one mountain river stone at that time, and the gravitational force you encounter will be much stronger the second time. Even those who successfully obtain one mountain river stone are extremely rare, let alone a few. However, if you're lucky enough, ordinary mountain river stones will sometimes appear on the stone steps." Ling Han broke into a smile, and said, "I'm not an ordinary person." Shui Yenyu instantly rolled her eyes. She had never seen such a thick-skinned person before. However, Hu Feiyun nodded repeatedly. She thought that the 3 flying wolves had been killed by Ling Han, so she naturally had blind faith in him. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.